across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Chagos, chaos for the government. We'll be talking to the Shadow Defence Minister in just a second about how the government appears not to know what's going on. The Foreign Office Minister, Hamish Faulkner, in Parliament today says it's on pause. Then, quickly, a clarification, no it's not. You're very welcome to Talk. I'm Peter Cardwell. Between now and 10 o'clock, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Lindsay Hoyle getting an apology, the Speaker of the House of Commons, an apology from the Metropolitan Police because they revealed that he had been the source of some intelligence about Peter Mandelson, who of course denies that he was off to the Virgin Islands. Now Speaker Hoyle has told Parliament that as well. He's been apologised to by the Metropolitan Police. We'll talk as well about the Prime Minister under pressure to stop bankrolling France, as figures have shown 2/3 of small boat migrants still make it across the Channel. Why are we giving them £700 million, apologies, every year? Also, Donald Trump has his State of the Union. It was long and boring, but there were some interesting points within it. We'll play you just a few clips of that and talk it all through with Greg Swenson from Republicans Overseas. Also, Isabel Oakeshott on the programme and Kinsey Schofield too, bring us right up to date on Andrew. There's so much to talk about with that story that just runs and runs. We'll talk as well about the Green Party. Illegal migrants to be given a free house, paid a wage, even if they don't work, under Zach Polanski's dangerous green immigration policy. This is just a few days after he said he wanted to legalise all drugs. Really? They want to grant an amnesty to all illegal immigrants too. The Green Party just don't seem to know how this country works and how an economy works as well. So much to discuss in all of this. I want to talk to you as well. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me at 722 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell. You can send me a WhatsApp voice note, less than a minute please. You can send me a WhatsApp text message, or you can give me a ring, all in the main number 0344 499 1000. Plenty to discuss between now and 10. Stay with us here on Talk. Well, there was an absolutely extraordinary day in Parliament in regard to the Chagos Islands, which I know so many of our viewers and listeners really, really care about. We're baffled, many of us, as to why £35 billion a year of our money is going to be used, or £35 billion, I should say, over the course of the next 99 years, to pay Mauritius, who have never owned the Chagos Islands, to take them off our hands for access to Diego Garcia and the intelligence operations that happen there. Let's go back a little bit, because Nigel Farage at Prime Minister's Questions asked Keir Starmer about the rights of Chagosians. This is what happened at Prime Minister's Questions a little bit earlier on today.
At the age of 14, Michel Mandarin was forcibly removed from his home, the coral atoll of Ile-de-Quoi, dumped on the quayside in Mauritius, forced to live on food scraps out of bins. He has resettled those islands and yet now faces a removal order from yet another Labour government. So maybe twice in one lifetime, he's going to be asked to leave his homeland. Can I ask the Prime Minister, for a government that is full of human rights lawyers, within and without, why do the opinions and human rights of indigenous Chagosians not matter to him at all?
And the Prime Minister basically bluffed and blustered and blamed Nigel Farage for all sorts of other things. Later on in the day, Hamish Faulkner, who is a Foreign Office Minister, well, he said this.
To be clear about the current position, as he knows, there was support for the US, from the US administration for this treaty, which has not changed. There clearly has been a statement from the President of the United States more recently, which is very significant. And as I told the House, we are now discussing those concerns with the United States directly. We have a process going through Parliament in relation to the treaty. We will bring that back to Parliament at the appropriate time. We are pausing for discussions with our American counterparts.
Pausing for discussions, but then Downing Street said, that's not true, there is no pause. What on earth is going on here? Mark Francois is the Shadow Defence Minister and joins me now. Mark, have you any idea what on earth the government is doing here?
No, but Peter, in fairness, neither does anyone else. Now, I need to fess up. I missed Prime Minister's questions. I was part of a delegation to Ukraine. We were there yesterday in the Maidan Square in Peterborough for the 4th anniversary of the Russian full-scale invasion. So the risk of
let's definitely talk about that trip in a few minutes' time, Mark.
But my point is, I've been travelling for 17 hours. I missed BMQs, but I've tried to catch up since then, and the government completely at 6 and 7. There are two fundamental points about this. One is, because of a 1966 treaty between ourselves and the Americans, the United States have a veto over this deal. Unless they agree to change that treaty, the deal legally cannot go ahead under international law. So that is the pause that Hamish Falconer was talking about to allow them to talk to the Americans. And he even said himself it was in the context of President Trump changing his position last week. And the second point is, and we've discussed this before, so I'll summarise it quickly, under what's called Article 298B of the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, we have a cast-iron legal opt-out on all of this anyway. So there is no legal threat to the sovereignty of Diego Garcia, and therefore we don't need to pay £35 billion to anyone. The whole thing is unravelling, and we've now got a Foreign Office Minister, saying something to Parliament, but being contradicted by Number 10 almost within the hour. This is utterly chaotic, and it's symptomatic of the entire process. They should just drop the whole bloody thing and save us £35 billion.
Do you think they will, though? Do you think they'll listen to people like you and to so many of our viewers and listeners as well, who are baffled by this, who don't know why it's happening, and see it as simply perhaps what Nigel Farage was saying there, that as Keir Starmer says he cares about human rights, but what about the human rights of the Chagossians? And of course, Farage was there in the Chagos Islands, or close to them anyway, over the weekend as well.
Bit sadistic, but if Nigel Farage raised this at Prime Minister's question, fair play to him. But, we have been raising this issue in the House of Commons, statements and what are called urgent questions, debates. We had an opposition debate on it where we choose the subject a few weeks ago. We have hammered the government on this for nearly a year. And the fundamental point is the reason they are doing this, and it's on page 1 of the agreement with Mauritius, is it talks about decolonisation. This is post-colonial guilt by a very left-wing Labour government dominated by a bunch of human rights lawyers, the Prime Minister doubts. Everyone can see that this is bonkers. Even the Foreign Office are talking about a pause, but in the Number 10 bunker, they overruled them within the hour. This is just becoming beyond embarrassing. And we're looking at laughing stock to our international partners, including to the United States.
Mark, you said you're just back from Ukraine. You're very good to do the interview after such a long journey as well. I just wonder if you could tell me what you were doing there, obviously the 4th anniversary of the Ukraine war. Just tell us about that trip, where you were and what you did and what you saw.
Well, I was wearing my Shadow Armed Forces minister, but I was one of a delegation of 20 MPs, the all-party delegation, bar reform. And we were there for nearly a week. We were having discussions with the Ukrainians and the opposite President Zelensky downwards, and we all attended a very poignant ceremony in Maidan Square in the centre of yesterday, where we commemorated the 4th anniversary of Russian invasion. In some ways, Peter, it's a bit like the Ukrainian equivalent of our ceremony of the Cenotaph on Remembrance Sunday, sort of act with a representative issue on Thompson and 20 off staff. And a point that came out again and again in our meetings with Ukrainians whereas this is the 4th anniversary of the full-scale invasion, Russia initially invaded in 2014 when they overran Crimea. So they have been at war with Russia for 12 years. And, to put that into context, that is longer than the First World and the Second World War put together. So we went to Ukraine to show solidarity, and I came back hot-foot because we had a debate on Ukraine in the House of Commons, and I came back hot-foot to sum up for His Majesty's opposition in that debate, and there was absolute cross-party support, with one exception, for solidarity.
We've heard at the weekend the former Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, saying there should be UK boots on the ground in Ukraine. What do you think of what he said?
I saw Boris in Kyiv, and he really needs a haircut. He really does need a haircut.
Okay.
And but look, I mean, we are open-minded about this suggestion, but I don't think Boris was clear about what exactly those troops would do. Yeah. And it's slightly cart before horse, because the theory is that you would have these troops to help police a ceasefire. But in order to do that, you need to understand the nature of the ceasefire that it is you would be protecting. So, the problem at the moment, and again we discussed this closely with Ukrainians, is Putin doesn't appear to want us, because he thinks he's winning. He's suffering World War II scale casualties. The Russians have lost over 1 million killed or seriously wounded since 2020 alone. But Putin has a sort of Stalin-like attitude to casualties. He thinks he's advancing one village at a time, but in minutes advance. And so at the moment, he's not willing to have a ceasefire. The only one we will get Vladimir Putin to agree a ceasefire is if in international community, particularly the United States, increases the sanctions, especially on Russian sales of oil and gas. That is what's financing the war, and the Americans in particular, but all the rest of us together, need to clamp down on the sanctions you might say of oil, China, India, and others, because that is Putin's vulnerability. It's his ability to pump the war.
Mark, thank you. That's Mark Francois there, who is the Shadow Defence Minister, bringing us up to date on what has happened in Parliament today and indeed in Ukraine, where he's just back from. Pete has sent me a voice note on what happened at Prime Minister's Questions today. This is what Pete has to say.
As for PM Questions, today showed it's rigged. Kemi Badnock gave the performance of an old wet kipper. All she went on at him about was tuition fee interest, tuition fee. Nothing about the important things in this country, nothing at all. And where's Fergie? Who's paying her massive great hotel bills and wellness centre, recovery centre bills? Who's paying that then? This country, is up, well, you know what sort of creek it's up without a paddle.
Thank you for that, Pete, encapsulating both what's happening with the Royals and in politics as well. James has given me a ring at 0344 499 1000. James, is this your first call to the station? You're very welcome.
Hi, yes, it is my first call to the station.
Great, well, you're very welcome to the to the station. What would you like to say, James?
Well, hopefully this is in line with what you're talking, at least tangentially. Look, I was listening to the station last week or a week earlier, and there was a lot of dust kicking up when Restore Britain announced that there would be a new party, and particularly around. Yes,
this is Rupert Lowe's new party. Just for
the idea of Britishness.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's just for people who may be not familiar with the discussion. This is Rupert Lowe, the MP who used to be a member of Reform UK. He's now set up his own party called Restore Britain, and there was some question about what it actually is to be British. So, James, what is your thought on that?
Yeah, so as a background, so you can understand why I'm making this call. I was born in Nigeria. I'm actually a person of color, born in Nigeria, raised in England, so I do have a British citizenship. Mm-hmm. One of the things that really perplexed me with the whole discussion was the lack of willingness, at least to some extent, to identify that the people of this country are a people. There is a blood and soil aspect to that. I understand how scary that can seem and sound at times, but for someone like me who grew up in a West African nation where people really do appreciate the sense of blood and soil.
So what age were you
people.
when you came to this country, James?
I was 13.
Okay, so a young man. And I just wonder, do you feel Nigerian? Do you feel British? Do you feel a combination of the two? What do you feel?
So because we're a colony, I actually feel like a combination of two. I feel very English, and I don't feel too out of place because, again, like I said, we're a former colony. So there's a lot of English culture that seeped into Nigeria. Mm-hmm. So when I moved here, I didn't feel too out of place. But obviously, there are things that are very different, obviously, like the food, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, of course.
So those things, yes, I still have a very tight. I love Nigerian food, but that doesn't mean that for someone like there might not be other people like me who come here and love English food and feel more British than Nigerian, and vice versa. So to directly answer your question, yes, I feel like a mix of both.
And what do you think of what Rupert Lowe has been saying?
Look, I actually I very much agree with what he's been saying. I do think English people need to start to feel like there is somewhere that belongs to them, as opposed to an economic zone, which is what some of what he's been fighting or speaking out against. England is not an economic zone. England is a country. There are the people that were in this country long before other people came into this country, like myself. I'm an immigrant. I'm a visitor. I've been welcomed into this country, and I would love for this country to feel like this country again. I would love for England to feel like a place where I look around and I can see English people who celebrate and love English culture. I don't want to walk around England and feel as though like this land has become something that it wasn't meant to be. It has become bastardized.
Do you feel that your ethnic background, the grouping of Nigerians, there are many Nigerians, of course, in the UK, that they have brought their culture with them, or do they contributed to this country? I mean, do you have a conflict between your culture and English culture, or does it all kind of mesh together?
I don't think there's any conflict. First of all, I'm not going to speak for every Nigerian.
Sure, of course not.
I don't know how all of them feel, but I will say like there's a strong group of there's already a strong sense of, okay, we're Nigerian and we love things about our country, but we come here and we adapt to the culture that we are in. We recognize English culture, so we accept things like I don't know, what is unique about English culture?
Queuing and making sure that everybody having their turn. Yeah. It's fascinating you mentioned this, James, because I think what I feel anyway, and this could be totally wrong, but my sense is a lot of our viewers and listeners have no real problem with people like you. Absolutely no problem in terms of saying, if you're coming here, if you're growing up here, if you're contributing to this country, if you're clearly an articulate and intelligent person who's contributed to this country, I personally, there's room for you. That's no problem. The problem is people who come here illegally. The problem is people who don't see our culture. And you've clearly thought a lot about English culture and what English culture is and how you fit into that. And my problem, and I think the problem with a lot of our viewers and listeners, is people who don't think about that, who want to recreate their own culture. So, I mean, can you see that?
No, of course I can. Of course I can. But I think the issue that at hand is not what you've articulated. I think it's another group of people who would probably want to say they're in your camp, who look at England as an economic zone as opposed to saying England is for the English. Other people are welcome. Other people have to come and adapt to English culture, whether it's the football songs, queuing, as you said earlier. Other people have to come and respect that. Don't come here and try to force English culture to adapt to you. Yeah. There we have a problem. This is why we have the mess we currently see right now. And one of the crucial things about English culture is whether or not you're a Christian, that's not the question, but accepting the Christian history that is deeply embedded in the soil and the story of this country. From King Alfred the Great, who wrote English law based upon the Bible, to Lord Blackstone, and so on and so forth. It just goes on throughout history. So if you come to this country and try to force people to reject that intricate part of this nation, then why are you here? Go somewhere else that accepts your culture, your religion.
Very, very interesting point there, James. Your first call to talk, but I hope it's not your last, because you clearly have interesting things to say, and I appreciate your contribution. What do you think about what James just said there? I thought it was a really, really interesting and intelligent take on a lot of what we have been talking about over really the 5 years that I've been on this station. What do you think? 0344 499 1000. We'll talk about Lindsay Hoyle in a second, passing information on to the police on Peter Mandelson. Mike Neville, the former Scotland Yard detective, will be with us and will talk us through what on earth has happened with the Metropolitan Police, what they have done, and what Peter Mandelson and his very expensive lawyers are saying about it. Stay with us here on Talk.
Breaking news in the last couple of moments. Extraordinary news. The police have arrested Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. It's his 66th birthday today. What a birthday present that is.
Mr. Mandarin, how long do you think that you can stay on the island?
We're going to stay forever. Our rights have to be respected now. We're going to stay.
Do you expect Jeremy Clarkson to become a part of your new party?
I can tell you, if Jeremy Clarkson decided to darken my doorstep, I would be absolutely delighted.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Every Wednesday, as you know, when it's on, Prime Minister's Questions is on during Julia Hartley-Brewer's programme, and I'm in the studio with her at 12 o'clock on a Wednesday to go through it. At the start of Prime Minister's Questions, in fact, a few minutes beforehand, a truly bizarre statement from Lindsay Hoyle, the Speaker. Let me just give you the context of this. So last night, well, actually 2 nights ago, Peter Mandelson was arrested, Lord Mandelson, we know that. Then there was this really weird claim that he was arrested because he was thinking of fleeing Britain. Now, the allegation is that he was going to go to the British Virgin Islands. Then we were told that the information that was apparently going to happen was through the Lord Speaker, so the Speaker of the House of Lords, who is Michael Forsyth, Lord Forsyth. He denied that, so we're wondering what on earth was going on here. Peter Mandelson said, it's not true, don't know what's going on. Then today, at just after 11:30, this happened. Speaker of the House of Commons, Lindsay Hoyle.
Members will be aware of comments in the media regarding the arrest of Lord Mandelson. To prevent any inaccurate speculation, I'd like to confirm that upon receipt of information that I felt it was relevant, I passed this on to the Metropolitan Police in good faith, as is my duty and responsibility. It is regrettable this rapidly ended in the media, as this is a live investigation. Members will understand that it would not be appropriate to make any further comment, and I'd like to caution members from doing so.
So we have this deeply weird situation where the Metropolitan Police has actually apologised to Sir Lindsay Hoyle for giving Peter Mandelson's lawyers information, pointing to him as the source of a claim that the former UK ambassador planned to flee the country. So the Metropolitan Police essentially told Peter Mandelson's lawyers, by the way, we've been told by Lindsay Hoyle, by the Speaker of the House of Commons, that Peter Mandelson might do a moonlight flit and go to the British Virgin Islands. Now, he could, in theory, be extradited from there because they're a British overseas territory, but that's not really the point. Senior Scotland Yard officers have been had an in-person meeting with Lindsay Hoyle this afternoon to explain the error, which is regarded internally as a serious breach of protocol. An official custody document shared with Mandelson's lawyers is understood to have referred to the Lord Speaker as the source of the information, a mistaken reference to Lindsay Hoyle, the Commons Speaker. I mean, that is a catastrophic screw-up where the Metropolitan Police is essentially saying, we've got some information, and by the way, this is why it's happening. By the way, here's our source. Crazy. Mike Neville is with me now, the former Scotland Yard Detective Chief Inspector. Mike, this is really embarrassing, is it not, for the Metropolitan Police?
It is absolutely, Peter. I mean, in my time as a detective inspector, I was an informant controller, so all sorts of confidential information came to me about criminals gave, about information that would lead to arrests of people responsible for all sorts of serious crimes. And that information was held in the most secret of computers, and the way that it was managed was so secretive because it could cost somebody's life. That, you know, if somebody thinks that they find out, criminals find out who has informed on them. And so it's quite incredible here that that this information was even recorded on the custody record, because all that it should say on the custody record is that what your grounds for arrest, well, we received information that this man was going to flee. The idea that you would write the name down shows some real naivety on the part of the sergeant who recorded that, the custody sergeant, some real naivety on the play of the people who actually went to arrested him and gave this information in the custody suite, where there's videos recording and all sorts of other detainees floating around. I just wonder what's happened. Scotland Yard used to be seen as a crime-fighting force, or the envy of the world. And this is just a basic, terrible error. And what it impacts on is, who now has seen this and thought, I'm going to ring the police and tell them about the drug dealers next door, or the person who did the stabbing down the street. And do you know what? I can't really do that because, the police might let that information out, and I end up getting a good beating at the very slightest. It's just basic, dreadful error, Peter. That's all I would say.
And this is, as you say, basic, dreadful error. And this is such a high-profile incidence of this. So if you are someone who wants to give human intelligence, who wants to give a tip-off to the Metropolitan Police but not be in any way revealed as that source, you're going to hesitate, as you correctly say. I just wonder, Mike, if you could talk us through a little bit, because what happens next, because we have Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, who is released under investigation, but we have Peter Mandelson, who's on police bail. His passport has been taken away, for example. There's a slight difference, of course, between those two statuses, isn't there? So what happens next? Just explain that to us, if you would, and similarly, what happens next in both these cases procedurally.
Well, what used to happen with police bail, it used to be never ending, so people could be on bail for years.
I had a friend who was on police bail for 2 years, yeah.
It's shocking. And so in 2022, the law was changed, and so with all sorts of time limits. So if you want to keep somebody on bail for 3 months, if it's more than 3 months, an inspector has to say, I agree. After another 3 months, it's the superintendent. And after another 3 months, it's the magistrate's court that has to agree to it. So there's a graduated response. The difference with Prince Andrew, he's just been released saying, look, we'll call you back when we need you. The reason they arrested Peter Mandelson, it's very unusual for the police to arrest people at 4:15 in the afternoon, and there's obviously something going on, is because when you put somebody on bail, you can then add some form of restrictions. Some criminals, you can't go out at night, or you can't talk to this person. And in Mandelson's case, of course, it's right, you will surrender your passport and then you'll get bail. So the bail allows the police to give restrictions on the person, movements, or who he contacts.
Yeah, okay. It'll be very interesting to see what happens next and all of that. So this investigation continues. They've said that with Royal Lodge, with Andrew, for example, that those searches of Royal Lodge have finished. But with Mandelson, actually, I mean, you talked there about him being arrested at 4:15 in the afternoon. It is a very, very odd thing to happen, that happens so late. And, of course, he is saying that he's been stitched up by the Metropolitan Police because of what happened and procedurally. I just wonder, would he, in theory, have a case for wrongful arrest by alleging that this information shouldn't have got to them and was untrue?
Well, I don't think so. The police can only act on what they're told, and they're told by, you look at when somebody gives you some information, you don't go and raid somebody's house or arrest them on some spurious information. You've got to check the source of the information. Sometimes this might be as weak as a Crime Stoppers call, an anonymous call. So you've got to look into all sorts of corroboration. Is there, evidence of crime being committed here? Here we have a very respected Member of Parliament, senior Member of Parliament, the Speaker of the House of Commons saying, I've got information that this man is going to do a runner and flee to the British Virgin Islands. You couldn't have better intelligence. We used to score this intelligence, A by the source, and 1 to 4 how good it is. Well, this is A1 intelligence, isn't it? One of the most respected men in the country is telling you something. So the police have acted rightly in making the arrest and then putting him on bail and seizing his passport. What the stupid thing is to reveal the source of it, because I'm sure the Speaker won't be doing it again. Yes, and I'm sure he was as embarrassed as everybody else. Mike, thank you for your analysis today. That's Mike Neville there, the former Scotland Yard Detective Chief Inspector, Mike Neville there. What do you think about this? It does seem a very strange affair. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. Get your voice on the air between now and 10 to have a chat and to reflect on all of that. Thanks to everybody who's been in touch, including about the call from James. Amanda says, how refreshing to hear the views of such an intelligent man coming from Nigeria and adapting to life in Britain. If only others had his respectful attitude to your country who have given them shelter. Amanda, I feel exactly the same as you, and thank you for that. On James, says Danny, James, your last caller, he is a fine example of good immigration. The left like to push the narrative that reform, restore, etc. are racist. There's no problem or issue if you integrate and contribute to this country, and I think the majority of hard-working tax-paying Brits would agree with me, says Danny in West Yorkshire. I am a hard-working tax-paying Brit, and I certainly agree with you, Danny, that if there is room for people, if we can absorb them, and it's been a while since James came to this country, and perhaps things where it wasn't so much strain on things like GPs and school places and housing and so on. He is clearly integrated to a huge degree, loves this country as well as his home country of Nigeria, so I have no issue at all with that. In fact, I would welcome immigrants like that who get it, who actually understand what our country is about and the greatest traditions of them. And in fact, he was almost sort of misty-eyed looking at some of the things that have been lost about Britain and about England, even in the time that he has been here. Helen says, please tell me if it's true that the Prime Minister is 6 weeks away from signing Gibraltar over to the Spanish. I don't think that's true, Helen. I do know certainly that there are many worries that Gibraltar has to accede to EU rules, for example, and that's something we may well talk about a bit later on in the programme. Regarding Chego, says Suze, and many other things, could this government be any more chaotic, inept and dangerous? And Barry says, I'm embarrassed by the state of this country and doubly embarrassed when I see Prime Minister's questions. I was an absolute idiot to join up to protect this country. What a waste of time, says Barry, who is a veteran. What do you think about what has been said? What's on the tip of your tongue, and what do you want to say to me tonight about all those stories, and indeed about James's call and those texts we just read out there? 0344 499 1000. Give me a ring, get your voice on the air. Lots to discuss this evening between now and 10. And in just a second, we're going to talk to Matthew Goodwin Freeman, a Conservative councillor and commentator, about the Prime Minister being under pressure to stop bankrolling France. Figures showing 2/3 of small boat migrants still make it across the Channel. Why on earth are we giving France 700 million quid a year? Stay with us here on Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
And I also wanted to say, wow, James, that was a great first.
Oh, sorry, we're back. I was just listening to one of the voice notes that have been sent through, so apologies. I thought it was a longer break, but it isn't. It's a break at the halfway point of the hour, which is slightly shorter. Apologies for that. Thank you to Pete, who says, I see Lindsay Hoyle's luxury holidays have been brushed under the carpet. People have short memories. Well, certainly Lindsay Hoyle has been right round the world for many reasons, and I think he may well have actually been in the British Virgin Islands over the last few days. I don't know that for sure, but I've certainly heard that. Matthew Goodwin Freeman is a Conservative councillor and joins me now to talk about all these issues and the fact that the border farce has occurred. Fury as useless French failed to stop 2/3 of small boats crossing the channel, which Starmer told stop paying them. So we give them 700 million quid a year. Tories and Reform say mustn't pay another penny unless France dramatically proves its record. Some of the statistics here, Matthew, unbelievable. 41,000 migrants reaching the UK by small boat in 2025. That's up 13% on the year before and the second highest ever recorded. France apparently stopped 22,476 people, meaning only 35% were prevented from getting through, despite years of UK funding. Britain has already given more than 700 million to bolster patrols, destroy boats, fly drones and police makeshift camps. I don't know about you, Matthew, but maybe some sort of payment by results, perhaps?
Yeah, absolutely. Stop the money. No more pounds and pence going to France until, frankly, they stop the boats. I'm so fed up of it. For years and years, we've had promises that this is going to be dealt with. There was the Rwanda plan, which actually did see a drop in the number of people coming on the boats, but we couldn't get a single flight off. And then Labour scrapped it on day one, brought in this one in, one out, shake it all about deal, which in reality has been nothing but a massive farce. I'm sorry, we should not be paying any more to the French. I've had enough of it. The boats need to stop. And if anybody arrives on our shores in a dinghy, they should need to be arrested, detained and deported. Enough's enough.
There have been a raft of policies by Labour over the past few months. Maybe raft is the wrong word, but they've had an awful lot of different policies on all of this. They've said one in, one out, you mentioned there. There have been various deterrents that they've attempted to do and various schemes. Do you think any of them has worked? And Shabana Mahmood, who seems to be a bit of a tougher character than Yvette Cooper, although that wouldn't be difficult, is there anything they're doing that is working or helping in any way, do you think, Matthew?
Nothing is working. Last year, 46,000 people came to our shores illegally. We don't know who they are. We don't know what their background is. They dumped their passports or any documents they've got in the channel, but they get to now rest up in hotels and walk free amongst our streets. Their numbers were dropping. Yes, the Conservatives lost control, but they then introduced the Rwanda plan, which reduced numbers by 33%. It was having an impact without a flight taking off. Labour scrapped it on day one, chucked more money to the French, brought the one in, one out deal, and nothing has worked. The numbers have gone up and up. I actually think the most impressive thing was that video where the French police officer got into the shallow waters and slashed up one of the boats. I'll go and fund some Stanley knives if they need it. And then ever since then, they've not done it. The French.
Yeah, it's funny that happened.
Where's the safety of British women and girls?
It's funny that Stanley knife stabbing of the boat occurred exactly as the cameras were there, because I'm not sure that there has been a huge amount of preventative measures, a huge number of preventative measures actually taken by the French police. I feel as well that the 700 million quid has gone to waste. I mean, if you divide 700 million by 22,476, in fact, you talk for a second, Matthew, and I'm going to do that calculation on my phone and see how much we paid per migrant they prevented.
The fact is, British taxpayers' money. This is our hard-earned cash. This is what we're all having to pay more. And all the French are doing is saying, oh, this way for Britain, please. It's ridiculous. Like, I'm sorry, but I'm fed up with it. I don't want to pay. Frankly, we should go on a strike. We should say we are not paying any more for this. If you turn up illegally, the second that boot hits the sand, you should be wrestled to the ground by the police. You should be chucked in the back of a van to the nearest military base and sent out the country. I've had enough of it. People in this country are fed up with it. We are so soft. And the one thing that was actually going to do something, the Rwanda plan, got held up by the ECHR. The Conservatives couldn't be bothered to push it through, and now we've got Labour who scrapped it.
Let me tell you, just on my back of the envelope, calculation here, which I actually think I've got it wrong. No, hold on, 700 million. No, I've got it right. 700 million divided by 22,476. So per migrant that they stopped coming across the shores, the French, we paid them 700 million quid, per migrant cost £31,144.33, Matthew.
Well, Peter, you clearly spent the best part of a decade working at the Bank of England. My goodness. Look, frankly, at the end of the day...
I was in customer services, Matthew.
Oh, yeah, right. But the school of Diane Abbott. I am genuinely fed up. I'm so fed up. I've bit my tongue for long enough. I've come on your show, many others, and tried to defend what's going on. I'm sorry, enough is enough. There are simple solutions to this. It's called actually dealing with the problem. The second that someone turns up on the beach, they should be wrestled to the ground, they should be put in a police van, and they should be kicked out of the country. And I tell you what, if you put a video of that on social media, the boats will stop. America did it. America under Trump have stopped illegal immigration on the southern border because there were videos and videos of people being put in the back of cargo planes and deported out the country.
Well, it's interesting you mention that, Matthew. It's interesting you mention that because this week Reform UK have said they want a kind of ICE-style force here in the UK. I just wonder, is that something you would support?
I'd support an ICE style where people are actually vetted and it's a proper system. We have a border force already, though. We have border force. There is no border force, frankly, going on at the moment. The borders seem to be open. So I don't care whether it's ICE, whether it's NICE, whether it's get out the damn country. We need to protect and patrol our borders. We are not doing that. These are undocumented migrants coming in. We have no idea who they are. And I just ask, where are the women and girls? Because in British culture, we put women and girls first. Where are the women and girls? They're still at home in these war-torn countries that the men have fled from. I'm really sorry, but that's not acceptable. That's an economic migrant. Let's call it out for what it is. We need to start getting tough, start talking tough, and actually do what the damn British public want.
Matthew, we'll come back to you in just a second. We're going to take a break now, and then I'm going to take a quick call from John in Newcastle. But we'll come back to Matthew Goodwin-Freeman for his views on all of the rest of the politics of the day. I want your views too, just like John's. 0344 499 1000. Stay with us. Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk. We'll go back to Matthew Goodwin-Freeman in a minute or two, but John's in Newcastle and has given me a ring on 0344 499 1000. I know immigration is a concern for you, John. What would you like to say this evening?
Well, I'd like to say now we have 70 million people on this small island, which is absolutely amazing. 70 million, and plus another 350 we've had just today, because summer's starting, you see. And so, therefore, it's really pathetic that we have to put up with this situation all the time, under the Tories, under Labour. We've got to have something different in this country. It just can't go on like that. We also know that 33% of goods that have to be brought into this country because we don't produce them. 33% of the whole situation.
And it's more in different sectors as well. When you think about that 700 million, John, to bolster patrols, destroy boats, fly drones and police makeshift camps that we're giving the French when it comes to illegal migration and people coming across in boats, what do you think of that as a taxpayer?
Well, yes, it's disgusting, but I don't blame the French. You see, no matter what that country was called, France, Germany, Italy, whatever you want to call it, the pure fact is that these people want to come here over that land to get here, to get where the benefits are. That's always been the case, the land of milk and honey. That's what they called it 50 years ago when I went across there on holiday. This is what they call us, the land of milk and honey. But it's not, because we, the ordinary people, know totally different. And you know, we've lost 6,000 farmers, haven't we, since this Labour Party got in? And the Tories
certainly quite a few after those inheritance tax changes that were made, yeah.
I'm led to believe it was 6,000, and we can't afford that. We're only a small country, and I'm just disgusted at the whole situation. I'm ashamed, to be honest, to be British, because was never like it was never like this, and it's really got to change big time. Otherwise, we'll go further down the sink.
John, thank you for that. Appreciate that. Daryl's in Blackburn and says, on Lindsay Hoyle being outed by the police, I'm more concerned if Hoyle was on a taxpayer-funded jolly to the British Virgin Islands. He's been around many places as Speaker. It's a great job being Speaker. You do go to lots of exotic places. Many may argue that that's not needed. Don't give me millions, just a boat, an armed response unit and some drones and I'd stop the migrants overnight, says one person. Well, we certainly don't encourage any illegality. I don't want anybody to shoot anybody. Tony says, I wish you were Prime Minister. You're super bright. Tony, you're very kind. Thank you. Everyone seems resigned to accept this disastrous government. We don't. People power stop the poll tax by direct action. When will people break? A national strike is on the cards and not before time. Keep speaking for us. Tony, thank you for that. Another person says, well said, Matthew Goodwin Freeman. It's completely out of control. These people are lunatics, says Michael, who's been in touch as well. And another person, Mick, says, put the illegal immigrants straight into the army, would stop overnight. Well, Mick, I don't know about you, but I'm not sure I want them in the army, and certainly there are a lot of people who are in the army, various military people I speak to, who say if you don't want to be in the military, you shouldn't be there, because that just causes all sorts of problems. Let's go back to Matthew Goodwin Freeman, the Conservative councillor who's joining us at the moment. Matthew, tell me what you think of what some of those texters have said, and perhaps what John was saying from Newcastle as well.
Yeah, I mean, John, I'm sorry to hear that you're ashamed of the state of this country. Don't be. This could be a great country. Britain could be great again, but we need some serious leadership. I completely agree, though. We need to not be putting them in hotel rooms. We managed to pop up those Nightingale hospitals during COVID. Well, where's our Nightingale detention centres? We need to be processing, go through these people, pass laws and say, if you turn up with no documents, automatic refusal. If you don't tell us what country you came from, automatic refusal. I'm sorry, but this Labour government has a massive majority, one of the greatest majorities this country's ever seen. They could change this country for the better overnight, but instead they're changing it for the worse. They promised that they'd deliver change. The only thing we need is change from them.
Let's talk about a few other things that have happened today. This bizarre spectacle of the Speaker of the House of Commons, Lindsay Hoyle, passing on information to the police on Mandelson. Let's just remind ourselves what he told Parliament earlier today.
Members will be aware of comments in the media regarding the arrest of Lord Mandelson. To prevent any inaccurate speculation, I'd like to confirm that upon receipt of information that I felt it was relevant, I passed this on to the Metropolitan Police in good faith, as is my duty and responsibility. It is regrettable this rapidly ended in the media, as this is a live investigation. Members will understand that it would not be appropriate to make any further comment, and I'd like to caution members from doing so.
Matthew, this has just been a really, really strange few days with Mandelson's arrest, then all these allegations flying around about who knew what when and whether he was going to abscond to the British Virgin Islands. What do you make of it?
I mean, so my other hat that I've got is I work in Parliament, so I watch PMQs, and I thought this was just crazy. I mean, the whole situation about Peter Mandelson, it's just ridiculous.
Denies any criminality, denies the allegations against him, let's remind ourselves.
He can deny the allegations as much as he wants. I wouldn't call the best friend of a paedophile my best pal. You know, frankly, at the end of the day, this is a scandal that the government has to own up to and fully accept. I think what the Speaker did was right. All of us would do the same thing. If we were given information that someone involved in an investigation was about to abscond and run away, we would report that. Good Samaritan do that. So I don't think that's right. But it is just
we're just losing you there, Matthew. Let's see if we can get your line back there to Matthew Goodwin Freeman. In the meantime, Ed from Durham is on the line. Ed, I think you're a new caller. First time give us a ring, is it?
Yeah, first time.
Brilliant. Okay, well, thanks for doing so. Appreciate it. What would you like to say?
Yeah, well, I just find like, the way politics, sorry about me, like, so I've got no teeth. So the way politics is, they never seem to come out with the truth. What is the trouble? Can nobody, like, speak the truth and say, yeah, we made a bit of a cock-up, or, yeah. But normally they say, yeah, it's the Conservatives, or it's this, it's all...
Do you have faith in any of them, Ed?
No. It's David, it's not Ed.
Oh, I've Ed on my screen. Apologies, David. We'll get that changed. So, is there anybody who could bring your faith back into politics? What would they need to offer you or to say to you, a politician?
I'm quite sure. No, I'm talking to what you call it, the TV.
David, are you there?
Yeah, it's my son. He just came.
Okay. Just finally, just tell me what you need to be convinced by. What would need to happen?
Well, I wish they just like standing up to themselves and talking normal.
Mm-hmm.
And saying, yes, things are a bit...
Maybe kind of levelling with us and telling us the truth.
Well, I don't think they're ever going to do that, are they?
No.
It just seems being like an evil thing that they've been brought up with.
Well,
What
listen,
is it?
okay.
What is politics?
Well, David,
They're
listen.
supposed to look after the people that are down here on the grassroots who are running around going to work and doing things, and all they're saying to do is just go, yeah, well, I believe in that, I believe in this, and you get nothing of them.
Listen, I think a lot of people feel the same way, David, and I appreciate your call. Matthew Goodwin Freeman is back with us. Sorry, we were cut off in your prime there. I think the technology failed us there. Tell us your thoughts on Mandelson.
No, don't worry. Clearly, they heard what I was saying and thought they'd pull the plug. Look, everything with Peter Mandelson is disgraceful. It is the defining thing of this Labour government's premiership. I don't frankly care whether the Speaker reported him or not. We all would do the same thing. But this is not going to go away. This is going to carry on and carry on. And at the end of the day, don't forget, it was Keir Starmer who defied this guy as, well, he's just Pete, our good friend Pete. They have to own this. There is going to be a lot of stuff coming out from all the Epstein files, let alone just this appointment. And I would like to see the perp walk next time he's marched into a police station at 2 a.m. in the morning.
Thank you, Matthew Goodwin Freeman. Of course, Lord Mandelson denies any wrongdoing or any criminality. Lots of people getting in touch on all sorts of matters, and thank you for that, including Nicholas Heath on Twitter, who says, how many days ago was it, Peter, that you said that Keir Starmer had no influence on who was arrested and when? I cannot remember whether it was Saturday or Sunday, but I think you owe your caller an apology. I don't think I do, actually, because I don't see any connection between Keir Starmer wanting the police to arrest someone and that happening. I think it might have been Sunday when I said I thought it was inevitable in the next week or two that Peter Mandelson would be arrested, and so it proved. So, Nicholas, I don't quite follow your train of thought. If you want to send me another message, I'll try to read it out by 10 o'clock if you just want to expand on why you think I should apologise, because Keir Starmer hasn't ordered Peter Mandelson to be arrested, or Andrew for that matter. The police are operationally independent. Yes, of course, the policy is dictated by Parliament and it's dictated by the government, but it's not as if the Prime Minister goes, go and arrest him, go and arrest her. That's not how this country works. Leah says, it looks a bit dodgy, the Speaker grassing up the Prince of Darkness. Why would you wish abscond to the British Virgin Islands? Has a certain person been under pressure from certain Labour MPs? Very, very strange. It doesn't add up to me, says Les. Simon Hughes says, presumably not the former Deputy Leader of the Liberal Democrats, says the Prime Minister clearly has the questions for Prime Minister's questions beforehand in order to prepare his answer. Simon, I can tell you that is not the case. That doesn't happen. They have a big session on Wednesday morning where they try to predict what will come up, but they don't know. Does this mean, yet he never seems to answer one question, does this mean that himself or Labour as a whole literally have no answers to provide, or that they simply don't care? Well, the Prime Minister says things. I'm not sure we were enlightened to a huge degree, particularly by Prime Minister's questions today. It was something that was dominated by Kemi Badenoch talking about student loans and the huge interest rates for student loans, certainly. And I share your frustration, certainly, Simon. I'm just not sure that I agree with you. Well, I know I don't, because factually they don't have the questions beforehand. Kemi Badenoch is not going to give her questions to Keir Starmer. That's not how it works, and that wouldn't be within her interests. Angela says, good evening, Peter. Good evening, Angela. I'm not sure Zach Polanski is all there. I know it's rude to say this, but his policies seem to be insane. Just saying, well, Angela, I think that's a reasonable question. We're neither of us, of course, neither Angela nor I are experts on Zach Polanski's mental state, but advocating that all drugs, including presumably date rape drugs, all drugs be legalised, and then coming up with some of this stuff that we're going to talk about a little bit later in the programme, an illegal immigrants amnesty. New arrivals to use the NHS for free the moment they enter Britain. They would be allowed to work with no restrictions under plans for a world without borders. The Greens plan to abolish immigration detention, granting a full amnesty to illegal immigrants to stay in Britain even if their asylum claims are rejected. Documents revealed by the Daily Mail show that migration is not a criminal offence under any circumstances. That is what the Greens are talking about. Suze says, I agree with Matthew's main points, but his comment about protecting British women and girls suggests it's as if French women and girls don't matter. That's wrong, they do. I don't think that's what Matthew is suggesting. I'm with him on most points. We shouldn't be paying France a penny, but if it was the other way around, we would be doing the same, getting rid of the invaders who bring danger and conflict onto our shores. Our own governments are to blame. The threat to our security could be stopped, but there is no will, says Suze. Nick says the number of illegal migrants stopped by the French police is not 22,000. Those are the migrants whose dinghy engines failed while they're in French waters and had to be towed back to the French shores. The engines are notoriously unreliable as they're used for a single journey. The French have stopped virtually zero migrants from leaving their shores, says Nick. Gary in Glasgow says, I just want to ask you about the Chagos Island deal, as you're knowledgeable in politics. Isn't it within the realm of possibility that Labour MPs and their cronies are cashing in on this deal? Gary, I think that's maybe a step too far, although we've seen corruption in so many different areas of this. I do think that we do need to keep questioning this deal, why it's happening. I had a very interesting interview with Ben Judah, who was an advisor to David Lammy on this the other night as well. Pete says, going to get interesting now. Scandalson knows that Hoyle grassed him up. It's sort of very EastEnders kind of interpretation of what's going on there. But listen, thank you very much indeed. Will it be for Peter Mandelson? We will find out, and indeed we'll talk more about politics. John Rentoul will be with us in a few minutes. Want to hear your views too in the next hour.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It's just gone 8 o'clock. There's so much to talk about between now and 10 o'clock. I'm Peter Cardwell. It's a pleasure to be with you here on Talk. We're talking about Peter Mandelson. We're talking about the Prime Minister under pressure to stop bankrolling France. Figures showing that 2/3 of small boat migrants still make it across the Channel. We're talking about Andrew as well. Kinsey Schofield will join us a little bit later on. And about Donald Trump giving his longest State of the Union ever. Very, very interesting to see what happened there. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the police apologising to the Speaker, Lindsay Hoyle, for exposing the Mandelson tip-off. And we'll talk about Meghan Markle holding hands with a 14-year-old burns victim from Gaza, beginning a busy quasi-royal tour of Jordan. What's she up to there? We'll find out from Kinsey Schofield a little bit later. We'll take plenty of your calls, text, tweets and voice notes between now and 10 o'clock. Be sure to get them in. 0344 499 1000. That's the main number. That's the number you need for phone calls. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell. You can send me a voice note, less than a minute please, if you would. You can send me a WhatsApp text message, or you can give me a ring, all on the main number 0344 499 1000. Lots to discuss here on Talk. Let's do it together between now and 10 o'clock. Well, thank you to Margaret in Birmingham, who's been in touch and says, what a great interview with Matthew Goodwin Freeman there just before the break. He speaks for all the British people. So that's Margaret in Birmingham. Appreciate you getting in touch. I'm just being handed some information about what's happened in Cuba at the moment. And Cuba says that 4 people have been shot dead on a US registered speedboat. This is Cuba's Interior Ministry announcing that 4 men on a US registered speedboat were shot and killed after being intercepted in Cuban waters. In a statement, the Interior Ministry of Cuba said the speedboat's passengers opened fire on a Coast Guard vessel that approached them. 6 additional passengers were wounded in the incident, which took place near an island on Cuba's northern coast. The identity of those on board or the vessel or what it was doing in the area, that's not clear. But the Cuban government said an investigation has been launched to clarify the event, and the Cuban embassy in the US says the Florida registered vessel was detected near Cayo Falcones in the country's central Villa Clara province on Wednesday morning. So this is a very, very interesting aspect of there are a lot of tensions between the US and Cuba, particularly when it comes to fuel, because there's a deepening fuel crisis on the island. It's been worsened by the US blocking oil shipments from Venezuela. It's been a long-standing ally, of course, Venezuela and Cuba. And the Cuban statement alluding to these tensions, saying, in the face of current challenges, Cuba reaffirms its determination to protect its territorial waters and safeguard its sovereignty. It's a breaking story. If we hear more about it, we will, of course, bring it to you between now and 10 o'clock. But that is Cuba's Interior Ministry announcing 4 men on a US-registered speedboat shot and killed after being intercepted in Cuban waters. Greg Swenson is with us from Republicans Overseas. Greg, we're just getting this information into the newsroom right now. And, of course, we don't know the full details here, but just if you, and I'm not going to ask you to comment on the specifics of this, but when it comes to the broader relationship between Cuba and America, particularly under Donald Trump, what sort of picture would you paint of what is there? Clearly a lot of tensions.
Yeah, no doubt, and I think it's on, Cuba's on the top of the Secretary of State Marco Rubio's list of sort of the next problem to fix in terms of foreign policy. So it doesn't shock me, I guess, that some incident would happen at some point. But yeah, as you said, not a lot of detail yet.
Yeah, well, when we get more detail, of course, we'll bring it to our viewers and listeners. I want to talk about the State of the Union last night, Donald Trump doing that. And he talked, there was a particularly interesting moment where he talked about immigration and asked people to stand up if they think America should look after Americans. Let's take a look.
If you agree with this statement, then stand up and show your support. The first duty of the American government is to protect American citizens, not illegal aliens.
So what happened there was huge applause from many Republicans, Democrats not standing up there. A strange trick, but one, of course, that is a really, really clear visual representation of the big divide in American politics, Greg.
Yeah, it really is. And I think there probably were a lot of Democrats who would like to have stood up and would normally stand up. If that came from a Democrat president, I'm quite sure they would have. And so remember, President Obama deported 3.1 million illegal migrants in his 8 years. So, you know, this is typical of sort of this new progressive activist left Democrat Party. And I think it's going to hurt. I think it was brilliant because it's basically going to turn into Republican campaign advertising. All they have to do is show that. And there were some other ones too, like the Save America Act, you know, which would require voter ID, which every country in the world requires. And it's polling at over 80% in opinion polls. And yet the Democrats are not going to pass it or not allow it to pass. So, you know, I thought it was a brilliant move, and it'll surely come back in campaign ads.
Let's have another look at what Donald Trump was saying this time on Fox News.
You should be ashamed of yourself not standing up. You should be ashamed of yourself. That is why I'm also asking you to end deadly sanctuary cities that protect the criminals and enact serious penalties for public officials who block the removal of criminal aliens. In many cases, drug lords, murderers all over our country, they're blocking the removal of these people out of our country, and you should be ashamed of yourself.
I mean, if people were watching on the screen there, and I know the vast majority of our viewers and listeners are listeners rather than viewers, but very interesting, Greg, that we saw as Donald Trump, and indeed heard as Donald Trump was talking there, lots of barracking, lots of people attempting to shout him down, a really ill-tempered affair. It was a nearly 2-hour speech, of course, but this was one of the moments, really, that will be remembered for the ill-tempered exchanges from those who were meant to be sitting quietly and listening and applauding to the President of the United States.
Yeah, it was probably the low point of the speech. And I think, you know, again, I'd be running a clip like that for campaign advertising as well, although I'm thinking those two squad members have, you know, basically safe seats in their district. So yeah, it was really unseemly. I know that the House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries asked his people not to do that. He said, let's at least take the high road and use some some respectable manners, and they just couldn't help themselves. And I think, you know, they definitely lost that argument. And the fact that they're criticizing the president, for making that statement, they took the bait, basically, Peter. They really did take the bait.
Yeah, it's a very, very interesting one. Of the speech, more generally, he accused Iran of building missiles that could soon reach the UK, lambasting Tehran for not renouncing its sinister nuclear ambitions. He said, "My preference is to solve this problem through diplomacy, but one thing is certain. I will never allow the world's #1 sponsor of terror, which they are by far, to have a nuclear weapon." I just wonder what your assessment is from an American perspective, where we are with these negotiations, because we know that there are face-to-face conversations taking place with Iran, but at the same time a real ramping up of the nuclear of the row about nuclear weapons, but the military firepower that's there.
Right, and I think the president, again, he would rather get to the right place diplomatically and not have to use military force. But you know, he might well have to if the regime doesn't cooperate. You know, I don't know how they can argue with a straight face that, oh, we can only talk about our nuclear capabilities, and we're going to continue funding our terrorist proxy groups, and we're going to continue, you know, developing our missile program to fire on our neighbors. It's just unthinkable. And if they can't address those three issues, not just one issue, I think there's little choice that the president has to accept a strike.
What do you think about how Americans are viewing Trump at the moment, because a Gallup poll has found his approval rating 36% in December, approaching the 34% rating at the end of his first presidency, which was his all-time low. It's difficult, of course, in a second term, even though they're not consecutive, to be popular. But as they go into the midterms in the autumn time later on this year, what do you think the position of the Republicans is, and what do they need to do to attempt to face off these problems from the Democrats?
Yeah, well, he definitely needs to get those poll numbers up. Now, he's actually polling higher than Obama and W and obviously Biden at this point in their second terms, although in Biden's case, it was just one term. So he's not polling that poorly for a president in his second term. The problem is, and even if you look at Reagan, in his first term, he was polling at 35 in January of 1983, and 18 months later, he won 49 states in the biggest landslide in American history. So he could turn this around, but I think, he was trying to address economic concerns. And I think if enough people hear how bad the economy is from the mainstream media, they'll start to believe it. And it's interesting, Peter, even though he's polling poorly on the economy and consumer confidence is relatively low because, of people watching the news cycle, the retail sales and consumer spending are up at record levels. So, there's a disconnect between what people think and because of what they see on TV or in the newsprint and what and how that's reflected in the real economy. So I think there's a chance, if all of these economic policies really start to kick in, the things that were done last year, you'll see those poll numbers go up, and it has to happen if the Republicans hope to avoid a blowout in November.
What's your instinct? What do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, I just think if I were betting on it, I would bet the Democrats take back the House. The Republicans will keep the Senate. It's really hard for the party in power to keep the House. It rarely happens. It happened in '98 because you had a fantastic economy for Bill Clinton. I mean, really rip-roaring in the late '90s, and also a backlash against Republicans for impeaching Bill Clinton. And then, of course, in 2002, George W. Bush picked up seats because you had the tailwinds of 9/11. You had a real sense of patriotism. Both of those presidents were polling at 60 or higher at the time. That's going to be really difficult for President Trump or any president in the last 15 years. So I don't expect that there'll be some miracle where the Republicans could keep the House. I hope I'm wrong. I really do.
Okay. Greg, thank you very much. That's Greg Swenson there, who is the head of Republicans overseas. Michael's given me a ring from Belfast, home territory. Michael, you're very welcome to the programme. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. Tell me what you'd like to say this evening.
Thanks for taking my call, Peter.
Sure.
Peter, I was born in 1963, Carrickfergus, and all I ever knew was the Troubles from 6 years old, and I don't have to go over the stories, but all the stories,
It was a horrible time.
We could all write 10 books on it. Carrickfergus could write 30 books on it, and still more. But I fell in love with Manchester United, went to live in Manchester when I was 19, married a Catholic, and lived in Manchester for 35 years. Back in Carrickfergus now. But my wee son, he's now 27.
Not that way anymore.
Not that way anymore, Peter. I've actually, for the first time in my life, sent him a message to say, Alex, you need to start to think seriously about moving out of Manchester and England.
And why is that? Why do you think that's the case?
Well, Peter, we both know sectarianism and warfare, and it's just round the corner in England.
You're seeing that in we've got a by-election in Gorton and Denton tomorrow, of course. You're seeing that there is sectarianism there, in your view?
The Green Party? The Green Party? This is Trojan horse. This isn't the Green Party, folks. This isn't Save the Planet or Save the Trees.
And why do you say that, Michael?
They've hijacked this part, same as the way they hijacked George Galloway. Isn't it convenient he pulled out of it? So, look, the danger will be, Peter, and we've lived through it, we know the score, the danger will be, and what I would like to know, why don't the Muslims form their own party? It's going to happen. Why are they hijacking the Green Party and Galloway and all?
Well, we know there's some pro-Gaza independents in Parliament as well, so maybe there will be a party previously. But from your experience, how dangerous is, I mean, I have a view on it, you'll have experience of it too, Michael. How dangerous is sectarianism? Simply saying that you dislike people because of their...
Yeah, as I said, Peter, I've sent my son a message tonight to say, you and your girlfriend have to think about getting out of England, please do. Because sectarianism, and look, I'm saying something controversial here, Peter, and I don't think, the reason why I don't think it'll happen, because I don't think people in England have the courage to pick up arms.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well,
that's a controversial thing to say.
No, listen, I understand that concern. You're absolutely not...
have the courage, thank God help us all.
Well, you're obviously not advocating, Michael, that anybody do that, and that's fine to say that, of course, that you worry that may well be the case, and let's hope it doesn't happen. Let's hope we can get a grip on that. Michael, listen, thank you very much for your thoughts there. That's Michael in Belfast. We're going to talk to John Rentoul in a second, who's the chief political commentator of The Independent, about this scandal over Mandelson and exactly what happened in Parliament today. Lots of people want to get in on the phone. Please do give me a ring, 0344 499 1000. So much to discuss. You can send me a voice note on that number too. Stay with us.
Join me, Rob Jenrick, on the Jeremy Carr Breakfast Show on Talk.
There's a lot of harm happening in the country right now. People feel like the country's in a mess. Why is it so difficult for this Labour government to just say what a woman is? To believe in basic biology and common sense? Take away these human rights laws, which have got completely out of control now. You know, I do believe that economies can be fixed and you can get catch-up growth. On illegal migration, we're very clear. We're going to detain and deport absolutely everyone who enters our country illegally.
Ring in, ask me any question, I'm here to answer.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Elisa in Chelmsford has been in touch with a voice note. This is what she has to say this evening.
Hi, Peter. I was absolutely thrilled that Kemi Badenoch spoke about the student loans today. There are parents and students all around the country that are furious and very, very worried. It's not only the debt that they've got to pay, it's the effect on their mental health. The interest rates are something like 9%. That's outrageous. Something needs to be done about it. And I'm glad that she's raised the topic. And I also wanted to say, wow, James, that was a great first call. And I completely agree with him. As an immigrant myself, I came to this country, I embrace British culture because I love Britain. And that's exactly what people should feel if they immigrate here.
Elisa, thank you. You, like Elisa, can send a message in, a voice note. Keep it to less than a minute if you would. Let everybody have their chance. Anything you want to say between now and 10 o'clock, send it through via WhatsApp. Dead easy. Same way as you send a voice note to anybody else. Just send it through to 0344 499 1000. We'll get you on the air. People calling in as well. I can see the phones going at the moment. 0344 499 1000. We'll get as many people on the air as we can between now and 10, because this is my show, but it's your show too. Lots to discuss this evening. And I want to speak to John Rentoul in a second. He's the chief political commentator of The Independent. Just before I do, let's just remind ourselves what the Speaker, Lindsay Hoyle, said. A very strange statement to Parliament after Peter Mandelson arrested. Peter Mandelson wondered, why on earth am I being arrested? Do I have an appointment to go and see the police in a few weeks' time? Then he was arrested, apparently on the word of the Speaker, Lindsay Hoyle, who received a tip that Peter Mandelson might be about to flee the country. That's something Mr Mandelson denies. He also denies all of the wrongdoing that he is accused of. Let's hear from Lindsay Hoyle and what he told Parliament this afternoon, or very late this morning, I should say.
Members will be aware of comments in the media regarding the arrest of Lord Mandelson. To prevent any inaccurate speculation, I'd like to confirm that upon receipt of information that I felt it was relevant, I passed this on to the Metropolitan Police in good faith, as is my duty and responsibility. It is regrettable this rapidly ended in the media. As this is a live investigation, members will understand that it would not be appropriate to make any further comment, and I'd like to caution members from doing so.
The Speaker, Sir Lindsay Hoyle, earlier in the House of Commons today. I was around Westminster and jaws dropped. Let me tell you, I had a few meetings in and around Westminster, and my goodness, there were people who were really, really shocked at what he had to say. John Rentoul is chief political commentator at The Independent. John, another bizarre element of this deeply weird story. What do you think?
It was absolutely extraordinary. I mean, yeah, my jaw dropped too. Actually, I had a few minutes warning that Lindsay Hoyle was about to confess that he had shopped Peter Mandelson to the police, and I thought somebody was pulling my leg, but it turned out, I turned the television on, and there was Lindsay Hoyle in the chamber, just a few feet away from me, making that bizarre statement. And you know, it's high comedy, isn't it? Because the police, of course, got this tip off. They told Peter Mandelson about it, or at least they told his lawyers. Only they got the source of the tip off wrong, and they called it the Lord Speaker.
So they first of all shouldn't have told them what the source of it was.
Well, you wouldn't expect them to. No,
yeah, well,
I mean, unless...
I've had a policing guest earlier on this evening who says that is completely against procedure. Then they get it wrong as well, and then poor old Michael Forsyth, who's the Lord Speaker, who is actually the Speaker of the House of Lords, he then puts out a statement saying, nothing to do with me, Gov. Then this bizarre kind of another 14 hours before you get to Lindsay Hoyle saying, actually, it was me.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely bizarre, and also a very strange thing for Lindsay Hoyle to have passed on anyway. Because I mean, I don't know where he got it from. Maybe there was some truth in it, but
he says it was his duty to pass that on. That he received the intelligence or a piece of information, scrap of information, and he said it was his job to give it to the Metropolitan Police.
I just think the whole thing is very, very strange. And I don't really believe that the police had to arrest Peter Mandelson in order to stop him fleeing the country, and they could have just asked him to surrender his passport. I would have thought that would be completely...
Which I would imagine he would have done. Although I suppose the point is, the question you really have got to ask yourself is, who do you trust least? Is it the Metropolitan Police or Peter Mandelson? And neither of them have shown themselves to be sort of shining examples of truth-telling in the last little while, perhaps.
Yeah, possibly. Although, I mean, I've, going back a long time, I've thought the police misuse their power of arrest. They often do it in political cases. You're probably too young to remember, Peter, but they arrested someone called Ruth Turner, who worked for Tony Blair, at 6 o'clock in the morning.
I do remember that, actually.
Because of the alleged cash for
Well, she was later cleared, wasn't she?
Of course she was, because there was that was an absurd case. It was all got up by the SNP, who put out a press release saying it was all very suspicious that some people were being nominated for peerages, and the police should have known better. That there was no way they could ever prove any wrongdoing in that case, and they should not have gone around arresting people. I think it's a form of intimidation.
Do you think there's a sort of performative element to it, where people say?
Of course there is. Yes, I mean that's what it's all about. I mean we saw it with Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. I don't see why he had to be arrested. I mean, was he?
So, will you think they should
have been leg it to the British Virgin Islands, or what?
Do you think these people, both Andrew and Peter Mandelson, should have been invited in for an interview, done under caution, that sort of thing?
Absolutely. I mean, and Peter Mandelson was invited in for an interview and had arranged an interview. They'd already searched his properties, so there was no need to arrest him in order to do that. And I'm sure the same would have applied to Andrew if the police wanted to search his properties. These high-profile arrests look to me like the police trying to impress people that they're doing a tough job, but I think it's completely unnecessary.
Where does all this leave Keir Starmer?
Well, in an awkward place, but what we don't know is what's in all the documents that Kemi Badenoch has forced the government to publish. And it could well be that there's some very embarrassing material in there for Keir Starmer. I mean, there is the suspicion that his Chief of Staff, Morgan McSweeney, and his Director of Communications, Tim Allen, left office because they knew that there was going to be embarrassing stuff coming out in communications between them and Peter Mandelson. We don't know if that's true. We will find out shortly, possibly. But clearly, it's all going to be very embarrassing for Keir Starmer. But the bottom line is that his party doesn't really want to get rid of him because the alternative is Angela Rayner.
Yeah, it's a very interesting point. And certainly when we look at the Gorton and Denton by-election tomorrow, without naming any of the candidates, otherwise I have to read them all out, John, and you know this very, very well, what are your thoughts on that? Because it does seem to me anyway, I was talking to a lot of people around Parliament today, that there doesn't seem to be any great consensus about who will win. It seems to be quite difficult to say, will it be the Greens, will it be Labour, less confidence about that, or will it be Reform UK? What's your instinct on this from what you've seen and heard?
Well, it's extreme. I mean, I think it's rather unusual to have a by-election like this, which is a genuine three-way unknown. Any of those three parties could win. I suspect the Greens will win, but I can't be confident about that at all. And whichever party wins is a very different result. I mean, if Labour wins, that would be a huge boost for Keir Starmer, because there's already a bit of a narrative developing about some good news on the economy, a sense that he's taken some really tough hits.
Do you think there's green shoots for Keir Starmer? Really? Do you honestly believe that?
Well, you could make the argument that his government's hit rock bottom and it's now
the only way is up.
People are starting to feel a little bit better off, and if that carries on, then I think this could be, and if Labour wins the by-election, then it could be looked back as a turning point.
I'm not sure I know really anybody who feels better off, but there we are. Thank you, John, much appreciated. John Rentoul, chief political commentator of The Independent. Maybe you're one of these people who feels better off, I don't know. 0344 499 1000, that's the number Robert in Hertfordshire has given me a ring on. Robert, what's on your mind this evening? You're very welcome to the programme.
Well, I know the real story regarding Lindsay Hoyle and Peter Mandelson. They bumped into each other coming out of travel agents. That's what happened.
All right.
Actually, when I thought of that, I made myself laugh there. But, well, Mandelson's obviously not got anything on Lindsay Hoyle, that's for sure. But I really think that this and Andrew I won't call him Prince, Andrew it's just a deflection into what's happening.
What's it deflecting from, do you think?
Well, the migrant crisis, the gradual Islamisation of this country, the trouble that it's going to cause, because, you know, that is the main danger. And I feel sorry for all the ordinary, moderate Muslims living in this country quietly. Sooner or later, they're going to have to choose, and they will be intimidated like they are in prisons. I know people who have come out of prisons and they said it's just been Islamised.
Yeah, well, there are certainly big, well, there are gangs of many ethnicities, but one of them, there are many prisons that are basically run by Muslim gangs, and they force people to convert as well, and they radicalise people.
Well, you know, I'd like it one day, I would like you to get your researchers to find out how many churches have been converted into mosques.
And that's something Reform UK have said on Monday. Zia Youssef, who would be Home Secretary if they were elected, he said he'll stop that happening. Is that something you support, Robert?
Well, I do. You know, listen, I've got many Muslim friends. Let me give you a quick example. I used to, before I retired, I used to get the bus from Finsbury Square, Moorgate, where it used to turn round. So we used to wait for the bus to turn round, 153. And if the bus driver was friendly, which they mostly was, they used to let you get on and wait for the bus to come. So you get out of the cold, you sit there, and you'd wait, you know, he'd have his little break. Well, a bus coming and it was pouring down the rain. And he was obviously a Muslim, as I'll tell you why. The bus driver, we went to get on, he said, no, sorry, you're not allowed to get on, it's against the rules. We knew it wasn't. All of a sudden, we're in the rain. I see him mucking about with a roll of carpet. Now, I swear this is true. He's opened the carpet on the deck of the bus and prayed.
And that's the reason you couldn't get on the bus?
Well, I don't know.
Okay, well, it's part of it anyway, yeah, okay.
Well, I took photographs of it because I thought nobody would ever believe me.
Right, yeah,
and this was 10 years ago.
Okay.
But
okay.
I'm just saying, you know, I know you've got to be careful of what you say, but I don't have to be as long as I'm polite. And
well, you've been very polite this evening, Robert, and you've made your points very, very well. So thank you for giving me a ring on 0344 499 1000. Lots of other people want to get in, and we will get to those calls. We're also going to speak to Kinsey Schofield next here on Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
You can give Petri a call on 0344 499 1000. You can give me a call on 0344 499 1000. We're going to be talking a lot about Peter Madison, about various people want to talk about mosques, about the Labour Party, about the country as well, going mad. Various people want to talk about all sorts of things. Whatever it is you want to talk about, whatever's on the tip of your tongue in the next hour and 25 minutes, you're very, very welcome to pick up the phone and chat to me. 0344 499 1000. And the great thing about these evening shows is that we've just a little bit more time. We've time to kind of reflect on the day. It's a little bit quieter. There's maybe a little bit more time to have those chats. So do give me a shout. One person I love having a chat with is Kinsey Schofield, host of Kinsey Schofield Unfiltered, who is with me now. Kinsey, a dramatic few days, of course, for the royal family and indeed for the country. And now Andrew Mountbatten Windsor has been told he cannot ride horses.
I know. It's a hard knock life, I guess. With the amount of teddy bears we know that the man collects, surely he's got a rocking horse somewhere within that situation.
Why is he not allowed to ride horses?
It's not a good look. Basically, it's the optics. It's one of the reasons why overnight, remember the story was he wasn't supposed to move to Sandringham until Easter. And the King and Prince William were so frustrated seeing those images of Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, former Prince Andrew, doing the princely wave around the Windsor estate at tourists, smiling and posing for the camera. And they were so frustrated by the optics of this that they basically scooped him up overnight, threw him on a plane and said, "You've got to get out of here." And it's my understanding that that is why the police rushed to search both homes, because they realized suddenly he was going to be in the midst of a moving process. You know, a lot can get lost in a moving process.
Well,
where you're tossing it in the trash, or if you're tossing it in a fireplace. So he's been told that he needs to keep a low profile, keep his head down, and not be seen enjoying his retirement.
Yeah, it's interesting within that, because of course all of this matters. They want him to look as ideally out of the public eye completely, especially with everything that's going on at the moment. But he is defiant, of course. He is someone who, despite the photo that's on the screen at the moment of him in the back of the car, that iconic image, he has been pretty defiant in a lot of this.
And I think that that's one of the reasons you're seeing a lack of sympathy and compassion from most commentators. I mean, there are some people like Lady Victoria Harvey who say we need to be more considerate of his mental health. But this has not been a man that has shown any empathy, compassion, or self-awareness throughout the last few years as we've, experienced this story with him.
You're absolutely right. Tell us about Meghan Markle and Harry, the Duchess of Sussex, Meghan Sussex, and Harry being on a tour of Jordan.
Peter, Jordan, where criticizing the royal family is not just frowned upon, it can actually land you behind bars.
Well, it's a good job you don't live there, Kinsey.
It could. Well, I'm saying Harry and Meghan going to a place where if you criticize the royal family, you can end up behind bars. I mean, it's kind of silly. The law makes it a criminal offense if you insult the monarch, the king, queen, the crown prince, and the penalty can be as long as 3 years in prison. And they will enforce these rules, often leaning on just like cyber crime laws. And people have been detained over social media posts. So it's interesting to see them there, but they announced this surprise visit about 24 hours ago to Jordan. They are there representing the World Health Organization. That's who invited them. And a source told People magazine that the couple are pro-family and pro-children, and their philanthropic work reflects this value, which I know you might see some irony in that statement too, considering the fact that neither one of them talked to their families. But I think that you're going to see a lot of negative feedback surrounding this trip because it puts the king's authority in jeopardy. I look at this and I see Harry forcing the half in, half out arrangement that Queen Elizabeth said absolutely not to. I think that the Sussexes, they derive that global relevance from this very institution that they now operate outside of. And if they continue to behave like freelance royals, conducting fake diplomatic appearances while no longer representing anything but themselves, I think this jeopardizes the king's reign. It raises serious constitutional and reputational questions about what the palace can do control-wise of these people. And Andrew's downfall was fundamentally about damaging associations and reputational risk. The lesson from that crisis should have been zero tolerance for any activity that blurs official status, diplomatic sensitivity, or personal branding, with royal identity. Instead, we're watching a similar pattern unfold.
But what can actually be done in that case with Meghan and Harry? How could these kind of visits be stopped, for example?
I think that in the process of removing Andrew from the line of succession, if the government does pursue that, which I think that they should, I think that Harry should be thrown into the mix. And I do believe that Harry and Meghan's titles should be removed, because while they have not been accused of doing anything even remotely as salacious as Andrew has been accused of, and again, he says he's innocent, at the end of the day, it is guilt by association. And we see similar associations here in the United States. Tyler Perry, who's Lily's godfather, has been taken to court twice, over civil court twice in the last few years for sexual assault and harassment. So they need to be more careful about who they associate with. I was sent this tweet by one of your producers, and I'm sorry I haven't had time to confirm it.
Okay, let me just read out what has been sent. This was sent to me by a viewer. This is a Twitter account called Honest Reporting, which claims a world-exclusive Harry and Meghan today visiting a Jordanian youth centre run by an NGO whose listed staff have shared posts glorifying Hamas terrorists, they allege. Hamas is a designated terrorist organisation, as we know, and Questscope calls itself a humanitarian organisation serving vulnerable youth. But a review, this tweet says, of verified Facebook accounts belonging to individuals identified as staff shows images of Hamas-affiliated militants, graphics celebrating rocket attacks from Gaza, posts praising resistance and violence, and Jerusalem as the capital of Palestine propaganda. It says these series of posts. We haven't been able to verify that, but they've certainly put a lot of information online there. So a salutary lesson, I think, Kinsey, that these things need to be checked and double-checked before association and before your, as you say, personal brand, your image is lent to them.
Yeah, I mean, if the institution wants to protect its credibility, it cannot allow part-time royals. That's a reputational liability. It cannot allow unsanctioned international tours to continue projecting the image of official authority from outside the system. And that's exactly what this is. It's my understanding that Harry, certainly Meghan, but Harry has little to no contact with his family. He is not there representing the British royal family. Who is he there representing? Why is he there as an authority figure? And so I think that the royal family needs to do everything in their power to cut ties before we have Andrew 2.0 on our hands.
Kinsey, thank you. As always, Kinsey Schofield, their host of Kinsey Schofield Unfiltered. What do you think about this? 0344 499 1000. Evening, Cardi P, says Patrick from Nottingham. In regard to student loans being charged at 9%, Elisa from Chelmsford was sent a voice note in about this earlier. Am I right in thinking the majority of the loans are never paid back? And how much does the taxpayer have to write off every year for these loans? Well, Patrick, I don't know the figures off the top of my head, but what I do know is that you've got to earn something like £28,000 a year before you start paying it back, and then there's a huge interest rate, and actually even after 5 years you basically owe about the same amount of money. We're saddling young people with loads of debt. Many of them, up to half, actually go to university. Many of them don't pay back the money because they don't earn the amount of money, or alternatively the interest just keeps racking up and racking up. There are a lot of foreign students as well, EU students and students from around the world, who do these courses and never pay back the money, and there's no redress for that. It's an absolute scandal. There's so much to talk about in all of that. Debbie says Mandelson just shows the contempt for British justice. What if you'd arranged to go to talk to the police? If the cops want to nick you, they can. End of. You're not locked up, so man up, says Debbie in her opinion. Another person says, I agree with your caller Michael about his Manchester comment in regard to sectarianism. I moved back to the UK from Vancouver 10 years ago. I might just go back to Canada. The UK is racing to the bottom fast. And I know that we have at least one caller, Andre, who wants to talk about sectarianism. I'll take his view next here on Talk.
Join me, Rob Jenrick, on the Jeremy Carr Breakfast Show on Talk.
There's a lot of harm happening in the country right now. People feel like the country's in a mess. Why is it so difficult for this Labour government to just say what a woman is? To believe in basic biology and common sense. Take away these human rights laws, which have got completely out of control now. You know, I do believe that economies can be fixed and you can get catch-up growth. On illegal migration, we're very clear. We're going to detain and deport absolutely everyone who enters our country illegally.
Ring in, ask me any question, I'm here to answer.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
There's lots to discuss on many issues. The Royals will get back to in a second, but the Green Party are of a lot of interest to me this evening because on Sunday they talked about wanting to legalise all drugs. Yes, heroin, crack cocaine, presumably date-rape drugs as well. They want to legalise all drugs. And also their policy now is that illegal migrants will be given a free house and paid a wage with no requirement to work under the Green Party's immigration policy. This is a party that may be part of the next government. If we're not careful, they may well be part of the next government. Zach Polanski planning to let arrivals use the NHS for free the moment they enter Britain and work with no restrictions under plans for, as they call it, a world without borders. This is a party that wants to say that Zionism is racism as well. Lots to discuss on all of that. And Amy sent me a message on Twitter saying, great show, Peter. Thank you, Amy. On what the Greens want to do for the illegal immigrants. How is it fair on the British people who are struggling to get a doctor's appointment, housing, etc.? And none of this plan illegal migrants will get it all for free. So will we be back of the queue again? Well, I'll talk more about this, I promise, later on. And Isabel Oakeshott is coming up in a few minutes' time. She's going to go through all of this with us. Nicholas has been back in touch, Nicholas Heath, who says, I was just pointing out that a member of the Labour Party managed to get Peter Mandelson arrested on demand. Don't worry, I'm smiling while I say this. Last I heard, Keir was supposedly leader of the Labour Party. OK, that's not how it works, Nicholas. What happens is the Speaker, who's an independent person, yes, he was a Labour MP, but he now isn't a Labour MP anymore. I would doubt very much he's a member of the Labour Party. He's an independent person. He is someone who, if he receives that information, he's got to pass it on to the police. As he said in his statement, he said he is duty bound to do that. He would not have consulted Keir Starmer before doing that. Peter Mandelson was not arrested on the say-so of Keir Starmer. That's not how it works. That's not what happened, Nicholas. But listen, thank you for your message, and thank you to Elle as well. He says perhaps Harry and Meghan would have been better off visiting all the orphaned and injured Israeli victims of the 7th of October instead. Margaret in Birmingham says the visit to Jordan is wrong. I think they were met by the British ambassador. Why? The king should have a word with this pair. I thought they wanted privacy. Pull the other one, says Margaret. Leslie says within 24 hours Starmer issued an eviction notice on the Chagossians with a threat of imprisonment. Meanwhile, 500 plus illegal migrants arrived today, not threatened with eviction. I think it's maybe slightly less than that, Leslie, but we'll get the full total. Kevin O'Sullivan, who has very good sources on this, says it's around 350. Anyway, it's hundreds of people, no matter what it is, Leslie. It's hundreds of people, and certainly they shouldn't have come to our shores. They have done so illegally. Angie says... Angie says, I love watching you and talk, however, with the different time slots you cover, I do worry about you. Please make sure you take time to relax. Keep up the good work, but take care of yourself. Angie, that is very kind of you, very nice of you to say so. I'm off on Friday, and then I'm back for the weekend shows as well, so do not worry about me, but that is very, very nice, and I think we may well have a little bit more to say on that at some stage fairly soon. Now then, Andre is in Farnham and says on sectarianism has been in touch, and we had Michael in Belfast on this a little bit earlier on. Andre, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Hello, Peter. Thank you for having me on the show.
Great to talk to you, Andre. Is this your first time on with me? I'm not sure we've spoken before.
It is my first time, and I have many friends in Northern Ireland.
Okay.
And I also have a lot of friends in the Falls Road, so we all know better than anybody how crazy it gets when sectarian politics plays out.
And we don't want that for the rest of the UK, do we?
Well, we don't want it for the rest of the UK, but I do suspect that the Islamic extremists, and I don't want to talk about all Muslims in this way because it's just not the case, but the extremists are definitely using the Green Party. I think they probably realise that Labour is probably letting them down a little bit because maybe they're still selling arms to Israel. But it's fairly obvious to me that once these people get some power, it's going to cause quite a lot of problems, not just in Manchester, but Tower Hamlets, Luton, other parts of Birmingham where they're already running around telling people they can't wear short skirts or girls wearing makeup.
I don't want to put words in your mouth, Andre, but is it your view that they're essentially hoodwinking Green Party members, sort of people in the Green Party who might think, oh, isn't this great that these people are joining up and giving us the benefit of their support, that and they're sort of taking over that party? Because we got Zach Polanski, who is actually a Jewish man, but he's not a Zionist. He doesn't like Israel. Who believes, in his view anyway, that Zionism is racism. I think that's preposterous. But it's very, very interesting to see what appears to be happening here, and I just wonder if you could expand on that point a little bit, Andre.
On that point, I think probably Zach Polanski appeals to a certain type of extreme leftist, and I think that it's easy to tap into this with the current mood at the moment, especially with all the marches on Palestine. There's evidently seems to be an awful lot of push to have a sympathy to Palestine. Without it, they don't seem to consider what happened October the 7th at all.
Correct.
I have a big fear that we'll have an October the 7th here if we're not careful. I mean, I dread the idea that we're just not very well protected here. We've got about 75,000 soldiers. 50% of them are overweight doing admin jobs. The other half are other parts of the world. If something was to happen here overnight, I don't know who would protect us. I've got friends who are ex-British Army who are generally concerned and, wondering what the hell's going on. So I think there's all sorts of problems with this, really. But I do think after the elections, particularly in the next elections in Birmingham as well, if we see sort of the Muslim votes really, really being quite strong, and my best guess is they are going to get voted in, I'm curious to see whether they start pushing for more devolution of power for Sharia law, or what we saw the weekend with that particular police officer being told she's in a Muslim area. This is utterly ridiculous.
That was an astonishing video, actually, and that person is extremely brave.
Well, I thought she was extremely brave, but I think she also made it aware of how these people are thinking, and I think that's what's really, really important. And I do think things are getting a little dangerous, and I think we ought to have a government that basically either doesn't know what to do, or they are just basically saying, oh, it's just a few bad eggs, it won't ever come to anything much, and we're in control. But I don't think they are in control. I sometimes wonder if there's a much larger thing going on here with a sort of a global socialism which is kind of going on amongst us, but I feel the Muslim extremists are milking that whilst we're going along that route. I think they're quite happy to think, well, this is quite good. We're a minority, and we've got a globalist agenda here. Well, we can really milk this for what we want for us. And I feel like there's quite a lot of things going on.
Andre, that is a really, really interesting thought. I agree with a lot of what you say there. And I know it's your first time. Ring us. Don't make it the last. Okay, give me a ring anytime, Andre. I'd love to hear more from you on another occasion. Andre there in Farnham. I just want to bring in Chris in Epsom with some thoughts on Peter Mandelson. Chris, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Hi, Peter. That last call was very good.
Really interesting, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to add a bit of history to that as well, which will bring it into focus a little bit stronger. It was the hard left in Iran that joined with the Muslim extremists.
Correct.
To assassinate the Shah.
Yep.
And put a mullah in charge, the Ayatollah Khomeini.
Yeah, and these red-green alliances do happen and have happened historically, haven't they, Chris?
Hang on a sec, Peter. And the point that they should learn from it is in the first week that the Ayatollah was there, they executed all the left-wingers that supported them. Right? So, it's happened before. It's happened in other countries as well. It'll happen here if we don't get a grip of it. Now, Mandelson, which I phoned up for, put him in context a bit. New Labour was the brainchild of Blair, Campbell, Mandelson. They were really the weight behind it.
Yeah, I'd say Brown and Philip Gould as well, probably. Yeah.
Yeah, well, but they weren't in that tight three. Then, in the early 90s, Mandelson started a department within Labour called Excalibur.
Mm-hmm.
Now that was the positive spin for Labour, negative spin for everybody else, and they were very good at it. And then he put Morgan McSweeney in charge of it. So there you got the four of them together. And then, as we all know, towards the end of Blair's reign, he and Brown were at each other's throats. Absolutely at each other's throats.
That's right.
Blair had promised to step down and let Brown be PM. And Brown was worried that they were coming up to the 12, 14-year period that most governments get at the longest, and he wasn't going to get enough time to do what he wanted to do. So Blair did a deal with him. Okay, I'll step down, but bring my mate Mandelson back.
Yeah.
Who he made an EU commissioner.
So what's the point you're leading to here, Chris?
Well, Mandelson wasn't arrested the same as Andrew was. That was favourable. He wasn't handcuffed, which is protocol when you're arrested.
Not all the time.
I personally think that when he spreads the dirt, it's going to be so thick it's going to cover both sides of the party. Because don't forget, he and Osborne were on Donna Prasko's mega yacht.
Yeah.
And a couple of days after, the EU dropped the aluminium tariff. And
I mean, I'm just not sure there's any connection between that happening. It might be a coincidence. I'm not sure one leads to the other.
Well, let's put it this way. It doesn't, on its own, it wouldn't look good. But with what we know he has done.
Well, we don't know he's done it, and he.
No, not these.
Okay, all right.
No, what he's done in his past.
Yeah.
Well, he's lied to the House of Parliament. He was sacked. Then he lied again, but he resigned. Right? And he was brought back again as an EU commissioner.
Yeah.
And then he was brought back to the UK and ennobled as a Lord, and the same day put in the cabinet. Now, you tell me, or you say to me, you don't think he knows where the bodies are buried?
I think he knows where the bodies are buried. I don't know if that. I would strongly doubt that has any bearing on whether he's been arrested or not arrested, or whether there are handcuffs on him or whether there's not.
Well, I say, all right, they're just little things. But what about Brown coming out and going to the Metropolitan Police? Don't you think that was Brown getting his own back on Mandelson?
I'd say it probably was. I mean, there's a lot of beef between the two men, Chris. Listen, thanks for your thoughts on all of that. That's Chris and Epsom there on Mandelson, and we know that Peter Mandelson denies any criminality, denies any wrongdoing, as Andrew Mountbatten Windsor does as well. Chris, thanks for your call, and if you do have any points on this, or whether you want to talk about the U-turns that are happening, I know someone wants to get in on that. We'll try and bring that in the next hour as well. There are lots of other people who have lots of other points, and Isabel Oakeshott, of course, too. She will be with us in just a few minutes. Talks international editor on all these different points, talking about Lindsay Hoyle and what he has said, talking about the Chagos Islands. Isabel will talk us through all of that, give us her unique perspective, and whether you agree, disagree, think she's talking nonsense, think I'm talking nonsense, or think we're talking absolute sense. You give me a ring and let me know before 10 o'clock. Plenty of time for calls. 0344 499 1000. We're going to talk about the Green Party as well, because I think they're pernicious and dangerous, and I do think that this new plan to legalise all drugs, very, very weird. Similarly, to say that migration is not a criminal offence under any circumstances. They plan to abolish immigration detention. So much to discuss in the final hour of the programme between 9 and 10. I hope you can give me a ring on 0344 499 1000.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Just got 9 o'clock, loads to discuss between now and 10. Isabel Oakeshott, our international editor, going to join me in a moment to go through all the big stories of the day, including a bizarre statement by the Speaker of the House of Commons, Sir Lindsay Hoyle, in the House of Commons. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the Chagos deal and how the government appears to be screwing it up. At the moment, they say it's on pause. Then a few minutes later, Downing Street says, no, it's not on pause. Everything is fine. We'll talk to Isabel about that. We'll talk to her about the Chagos Islands, as I say, and we'll talk about the Green Party. Illegal migrants to be given a free house and paid a wage even if they don't work under Zach Polanski's immigration policy. Very, very strange immigration policy that the Green Party wanting to grant an all illegal migrants an amnesty. They also want to legalise all drugs. Does that include, for example, drugs that can put people under the influence and lead to date rapes? That's the question I want to know. Lots of people are in touch about sectarianism. It's a big, big problem in our society. Where I come from in Northern Ireland, I know it's a huge problem. We've already had a caller from there already, and people from other parts of the UK talking about sectarianism. If you know much about it, maybe you're in somewhere like Glasgow where it's a big issue, give me a ring, 0344 499 1000. So much to talk about on Mandelson 2 and Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, so stay with me right through until 10 o'clock. There's lots to discuss. Be sure to give me a ring, 0344 499 1000. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV, follow me at Peter Cardwell. Send me a voice note, less than a minute please, on 0344 499 1000. You can send me a WhatsApp text message or give me a ring on that main number too. So much to discuss in the next 56 minutes here on Talk. Well, Isabel Oakeshott, who is Talk's international editor, joins me now. Good evening, Isabel. How are you?
I am really well, thank you. You know, I was just having a moment there. I was thinking, thank goodness that you and I were not trying to do this job back in the middle days of the coalition government when everything was really boring. And equally, you know, in some of the Labour years, first time round,
yes,
what would we have had to talk about? And yet here we are, and I'm thinking, where is Peter even going to begin this evening? Because there is so much to say and so much that's really annoying about what's going on.
You're absolutely right. And I remember when I started in journalism back in the day, it was around sort of 2006, 2007. And the only real political question is, when is Tony Blair going to go?
That was it. Every week. Yeah, what we call the TBGBs.
The TBGBs.
Versus Gordon Brown. That was it.
There was so little else to talk about. And actually, one of the first stories I worked on was not political at all. It was about the Litvinenko poisoning. Lindsay Hoyle. Sorry, I'm about...
You're about to sneeze. There you go.
Big sneeze there. Big sneeze there. Yes, I actually hit the cough button. As you know, Isabel, there's a cough button that you can hit so people don't need to hear it. Our boss, our collective boss, the Ayatollah of audio himself, Denny Morris, often comes out of his office and admonishes me for sneezing so loudly, so it's probably best that didn't go over the airwaves. Let's talk about Lindsay Hoyle now. He is the Speaker of the House of Commons. A bizarre statement about this very, very complicated Mandelson issue. This is what Lindsay Hoyle said earlier today to the House of Commons.
Members will be aware of comments in the media regarding the arrest of Lord Mandelson. To prevent any inaccurate speculation, I'd like to confirm that upon receipt of information that I felt it was relevant, I passed this on to the Metropolitan Police in good faith, as is my duty and responsibility. It is regrettable this rapidly ended in the media. As this is a live investigation, members will understand that it would not be appropriate to make any further comment, and I'd like to caution members from doing so.
Isabel, can you just take us through what actually happened here and your view on it?
Well, I mean, Lindsay Hoyle, the Speaker of the House of Commons, is a very well-connected man. You know, he is in a position of immense authority and privilege, and he often knows a lot of things that the rest of us don't know. And evidently, a credible source, or more than one source, tipped him off as he saw it that Peter Mandelson might be about to do a runner. Now, I think that's entirely credible. If I were Peter Mandelson, it would be going through my mind, what are my options? I'm really in trouble here, to put it lightly. Things are not looking good. Could I maybe just go to a country where it's going to make it really difficult for them to get me back to the UK? But being an intelligent person, as I am, and as Peter Mandelson is, I would also thought, that is a terrible look. You know, do I really want to look like, you know, Ronnie Biggs, the great train robber escaping? I mean, nothing would scream guilt more than me doing a runner. So it's both totally credible that Peter Mandelson might have said to more than one person, or one person, I'm thinking about escaping somewhere, and at the same time that he had no intention whatsoever of doing that, which is what he has now said. And Lindsay Hoyle, having heard that information, thought, well, it's my duty to tell the police this. Imagine if I don't tell the police this and Peter Mandelson is last seen in Panama or something like that. You know, people are going to say, well, if anyone finds out that Lindsay Hoyle knew this, and Lindsay Hoyle is a Labour MP, that's going to look pretty dodgy, isn't it? So he probably felt I'm sure he felt he had an absolute duty to report that information to the police. And that has then been leaked. And, you know, we now know what's happened. It came out and the police have had to say, sorry, you know, we like to protect our sources. This wasn't really how it should have been.
Yeah, they want to protect their sources, and I was speaking to Mike Neville a bit earlier on in the programme, yet they apparently gave the information directly to Peter Mandelson's lawyers, although made a mistake saying that it was the Lord Speaker, the totally innocent in all of this, Michael Forsyth, Lord Forsyth, who then had to put out a statement saying, "Naught to do with me, Gov," and then Lindsay Hoyle makes this statement. Very strange.
I mean, in a sense, none of it matters that much. You know, Lindsay Hoyle's done his duty. I really respect him for that. Peter Mandelson hasn't done a runner. He's got very heavy with his exceptionally expensive lawyers, you know, making it be known that this is the most outrageous claim and there's no ever any suggestion that their client was going to do any kind of runner. And in any case, the suggestion was that he would have gone to the British Virgin Islands, which will undoubtedly have an extradition treaty with the UK. So it wouldn't have done him much good. You know, if he really was going to do a proper runner, then there would be many better places that he could disappear. But he's not that stupid. I mean, he may not be clever enough not to have got caught doing a lot of things, but he's not stupid enough, I don't think, to have seriously thought that that was an option for himself.
And in all of this, the role of the Speaker is a very, very interesting one because, of course, he put all that information in the public domain. Similarly, I just wonder what your thoughts are about the fact that Peter Mandelson now has been released on police bail. Obviously, the law will take its course and all of that. But where does this leave Keir Starmer? He, of course, Kemi Badenoch, I think quite wisely, even though it wasn't a vintage Prime Minister's questions by any stretch of the imagination, wisely didn't talk about it because Keir Starmer would have just said he's a former head of the Department of Public Prosecutions and he didn't want to get into a live case. But the point is that I just wonder where this leaves Starmer with the judgment and all those questions that continue.
Well, you know, some people have been saying this is becoming Starmer's Watergate. We still haven't got those documents, those papers, the information about the vetting process and what questions were and weren't asked. And that is still this sort of, you know, sword hanging over him, if you like. And he's, in some ways, it's a testament to how politics changes so rapidly. Within 24 hours, things can look totally different to what you thought they were 24 hours previously. You know, you and I were probably talking 2 weeks ago going, oh my God, Starmer might be gone within the week. You know, I did not think he was going to survive the week.
Yeah.
And yet he survived. And not only did he survive, but in a sense, in quotes, it's all kind of gone very quiet. Look, no one for a minute is at this point saying Starmer could resign tomorrow.
Yeah,
he's sort of stabilised for a bit.
Although,
I think he can't surely after the local elections and the Welsh elections in May, that is the time. Now, if his critics within the parliamentary party, those that have their eye on doing a better job than he does, don't strike after those local elections, you've got to ask whether they ever will. And, that's the only time, the obvious time to do it.
And he's running out of people to sack as well. It's interesting he hasn't got a new chief of staff yet. He doesn't seem to have a new director of communications either. I think you're right, and I think what will happen after the local elections in England, the Welsh elections, the Scottish elections, which will all go really badly for Labour, that he will be seen as the person who can soak up that toxicity. What is your sense? We know tomorrow is the Gorton and Denton by-election. There've been all sorts of things written about it, all sorts of things said about it. I just wonder if you have any clear view about what your prediction is, because everybody, I spoke to a lot of people in Westminster today, and an awful lot of people from various different parties as well, just have no real sense of how it's going to go. They see it in many senses, and maybe you do too, or maybe you don't, as a three-way split between essentially the Greens, Reform UK and Labour. Lib Dems and the Conservatives don't seem to be anywhere. What's your sense of this, Isabel?
I think it absolutely hangs in the balance. Probably none of our listeners aren't aware of my connections with Reform, so I'm biased in that way, and it's worth just pointing that out. Before I say that the Reform candidate has worked phenomenally hard, but is that enough to, if he has garnered a certain level of support, is that enough to see off an almost equal amount of opposition, which could either splinter into lots of different parties, support for lots of different parties, or if it all coalesces around one party, that could defeat the Reform candidate? I'm only talking about Reform because that's the one I know the most about.
I know the Greens certainly have done an awful lot of campaigning, and some of their campaigning has been controversial, as has been the case with Reform UK as well, and some of the personalities involved with that. So there's a lot in that. It'll be very, very interesting to see what happens. That by-election in Gorton and Denton is tomorrow. We won't be mentioning anything on air because of the law, simply that the by-election is on when the polls close, which will be 10 o'clock tomorrow night. And well, we can talk about the weather as well in Gorton and Denton, but we can't say anything else about it. So that's probably the last that we'll talk about it, certainly on this programme. But it'll be very, very interesting to see. And Julie Hartley-Brewer is actually unusually doing Friday's programme. She's going to be here between 10 and 1 on Friday morning, because that election will be very, very interesting. The result, and we'll see what happens, and the effect on British politics as well. We're going to continue talking to Isabel after the break. We're going to talk about Chagos and the Chagos chaos, really, what has happened. We'll reflect on Nigel Farage's question to the Prime Minister, and also the Foreign Office Minister, Hamish Faulkner, who didn't appear to know exactly what's going on. He says it's paused. Downing Street says it isn't on Chagos. We'll talk about the Green Party too and their crazy policies. Lots to discuss with Isabel Oakeshott next here on Talk.
Breaking news in the last couple of moments. Extraordinary news. The police have arrested Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. It's his 66th birthday today. What a birthday present that is.
Mr. Mandarin, how long do you think that you can stay on the island?
We're going to stay forever. Our rights have to be respected now. We're going to stay.
Do you expect Jeremy Clarkson to become a part of your new party?
I can tell you, if Jeremy Clarkson decided to darken my doorstep, I would be absolutely delighted. Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thanks to Damon, who's been in touch and says, good evening, Peter. Damon in Wigan here. Hi, Damon. I 100% agree, says Damon, with the Speaker of the House, because Mandelson will do absolutely anything to save his own skin. The little man is a disgusting individual who has not had the United Kingdom interest in his heart. I understand Mandelson says he is innocent. He does, of course. He denies everything against him. I understand Mandelson says he's innocent, says Damon, and we have to wait and see. But Mandelson is only looking out for Mandelson, and I hope he feels the full force of the law in time. Thank you, Peter. Well, thank you, Damon. And if you want to contribute to the programme, you're more than welcome to do so. You can give me a ring on 0344 499 1000. Plenty of time between now and 10 o'clock for calls, and just a little bit more time on these evening shows for that, which I'm really enjoying. This is only the third one I've done, but I do like it in this slot. It's very, very good, and you do get to talk to lots of interesting people, including, of course, our international editor Isabel Oakeshott. Not unique to this programme, she's on many of them, of course. But let's talk a little bit about the Chagos Islands, and just remind ourselves what Nigel Farage, the leader of Reform UK, asked Keir Starmer at Prime Minister's Questions a little bit earlier on today about the rights of Chagosians.
At the age of 14, Michel Mandarin was forcibly removed from his home, the coral atoll of Ile-de-Quoi, dumped on the quayside of Mauritius, forced to live on food scraps out of bins. He has resettled those islands and yet now faces a removal order from yet another Labour government. So maybe twice in one lifetime he's going to be asked to leave his homeland. Can I ask the Prime Minister, for a government that is full of human rights lawyers, within and without, why do the opinions and human rights of indigenous Chagosians not matter to him at all?
And Keir Starmer criticised Nigel Farage on all sorts of fronts and didn't really take the point head on. I wonder, Isabel, what your thoughts are on all of this, especially, actually, hold on, just before I come back to you, apologies, one more clip. Hamish Faulkner, later on in the afternoon, Foreign Office Minister, said this.
To be clear about the current position, as he knows, there was support for the US, from the US administration for this treaty, which has not changed. There clearly has been a statement from the President of the United States more recently, which is very significant. And as I told the House, we are now discussing those concerns with the United States directly. We have a process going through Parliament in relation to the treaty. We will bring that back to Parliament at the appropriate time. We are pausing for discussions with our American counterparts.
And then later on, the number 10 said, oh no, there's no pause. It's just chaos, isn't it? It's Chagos chaos, Isabel.
And people can rightly just ask the question, how is it that so much bandwidth is being taken up by this issue? It's astonishing, isn't it? You know,
Totally correct. And I'm sure Keir Starmer, and no politician, Keir Starmer probably thought this will be easy, won't be that big a deal, sign it off, get it done. And actually, there's been so much opposition for it and so many crazy machinations here in the UK and in the US as well. Donald Trump changing his mind on at least 3 occasions.
I mean, if Keir Starmer honestly thought that he could just nod this through, then that tells you everything you need to know about the quality of advice around him. We all know how useless his own judgment is, but surely there would have been people around him that said, you know.
And apparently now, actually, in Downing Street, when there are so many people who are different or been acting up in different roles and so on, he still hasn't got a full-time chief of staff. There are 2 people who are doing that job that are filling in, who are doing it on an acting basis. Apparently quite a few more people around him think this is a really bad idea and he should do a 16th U-turn on this one.
Look, I think it would be one of the very few U-turns that we could actually just all praise him for. I mean, it's not too late, Prime Minister. Just admit that you got this crashingly wrong. You can come up with all manner of excuses to hide your blushes. You know, I thought the decision was right at the time, but when the facts change, it's right to change your mind. Blah, blah, blah. We've seen it all before. You know, you've rehearsed the routine, Prime Minister. You've now done it so many times. It surely shouldn't be that difficult. And, you know, there's an expression in business, the first loss is the best loss. We are well beyond the point of the first loss. That is all about, you know, when you see that you're on when you're on a losing streak, don't keep on putting on money, hoping that it's all going to become okay. In the end, all you're going to do is keep losing. And that is the risk here for Starmer. He's lost so much political capital over this. You know, it has caused so much grief. Where's the upside? I literally see no upside in continuing with this deal. It costs us a fortune in actual monetary terms. And in political terms, it's just taking up so much bandwidth and causing grief with the Americans. And Donald Trump is veering all over the place with it. You know, sometimes he's kind of cool with it, and sometimes he's had a certain day and the Brits are really annoying him, and so he's kind of not cool with it. You know, do we really want to be expending energy on this mad project, this totally unnecessary project? I think it would make so much sense for him just to admit that he blundered on this one, but it seems to be the one ditch that he's prepared to die in.
It is very odd, and of course he talks about, as Farage was getting at, he talks about being a human rights lawyer, cares about human rights, cares about international law. Well, actually on both fronts, Nigel Farage, of course, near, not in, but near the Chagos Islands, about 200 miles away at the weekend. Similarly, on the international law front, Mark Francois and many others as well, saying that there is actually a provision within the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea that could get us out of this, Isabel.
Look, I don't think there was ever a binding obligation to do what we're doing. You know, I'm certainly not a lawyer in these matters, but there are plenty of learned friends who will tell you that this was, you know, that this was the ruling, the advisory ruling of one international body, an advisory ruling. It's not binding. And anyway, plenty of perfectly respectable countries don't abide by rulings from international bodies. And guess what? The sky doesn't fall in.
We've ignored the ECHR before. We've ignored international law before. You know, David Cameron ignored the ECHR, for example, on rights, voting rights for prisoners. Just said no, not doing it, and the world continued to turn, as you correctly say.
There you go. So that has always been my view as to what we should do. It's a completely unforced error. You know, just a completely self-harming act by Keir Starmer. My hope is that this gets strung out and strung out and strung out until either Keir Starmer gets exhausted with it and just quietly lets it die, or a new government comes in and says, we're just not doing this.
Let's talk a bit about the Green Party, because they plan to hand illegal migrants a free house, a wage and NHS care. They're already pro-drugs, as we know. They want to legalise all drugs. Now he wants, Zach Polanski, the leader of the Green Party, wants a world without borders. That could be quite tricky. Illegal immigrants could be given a free house and paid a wage with no requirement to work under the Green Party's immigration policy. Polanski plans to let arrivals use the NHS for free the moment they enter Britain. They will be allowed to work with no restrictions under plans for a world without borders. They've got a plan to abolish immigration detention, grant a full amnesty to illegal immigrants to stay in Britain, even if their asylum claims are rejected. Migration will not be a criminal offence under any circumstances, according to the plan the Greens have. And these are not just loony lefties. These are people who have some MPs in Parliament already, may have another one in 36 hours' time, and are in a position where, if it all goes wrong for Reform UK, they could be part of some ragtag coalition, part of this country. Some of this stuff could become law, Isabel.
Yeah, but some of this stuff, well, an awful lot of what you just read out there is literally already happening.
Fair point.
Through those things, I was thinking, yeah, and what's different about what currently happens? I mean, illegal immigrants get nodded through, on the most spurious basis. They get a house, they get given handouts and benefits. I mean, the thing about the NHS, well, we know that in fact, asylum seekers in their asylum seeker hotels are prioritised in the NHS. They have NHS healthcare professionals visiting asylum accommodation in order to treat asylum seekers. Well, if ever you recently tried to get a doctor to come to your house, I think you'd be finding it pretty damn difficult. Mm-hmm. And yet they've got doctors, dentists, opticians actually coming to migrant hotels. So they're already getting extraordinary preferential treatment. I guess what is being said there, that the Green Party, Zach Polanski, would sort of codify that. Look, there will come a point where the country blows up about this stuff. We are so divided over this stuff, and there are very significant numbers of people who are absolutely, on the edge of taking the law into their own hands. No one wants to see that. It will come to a point where there are people who've been born and grown up in our country, whatever their nationality, by ethnicity, they are British, and they are struggling. Maybe they don't have a job, they're struggling for housing, they're struggling to make ends meet, and they are fed up of this preferential treatment as they see it, and they are going to kick off at some point. And if the Greens win that by-election tomorrow, and it looks like they're gathering momentum, our country is only going to become more dangerously divided, in my opinion.
Why do you think the Green Party are so popular?
I think there's very little understanding among people, among a lot of voters, about what they actually stand for. And by way of illustration to that, in Gordon and Denton, people have on the doorstep been saying, well, I'm not sure how I'm going to vote. It's either Reform or the Greens. Yeah. As if those are sort of similar. And you could not get two more different parties. But I think that tells you something. What that tells you, it's a reminder for all of us that are immersed in politics and get incredibly overexcited about it on an hourly basis. But most people are not that engaged with stuff. And what I think in their minds, the number of people that have said, well, I might vote Green or I might vote Reform, what they're really saying is, I'm really fed up with the establishment. I'm really fed up with the parties that I've heard of that have always been in power, Labour and the Conservatives. So I'm just going to roll the dice and I'll go for one of these ones that sounds quite extreme because I might as well. And they haven't really looked into what that actually means. It's like all the people that think the Lib Dems are somehow in between the Tories, Labour. Yes. And in fact, Lib Dems have long been, many of them, to the left of the Labour Party. Certainly. But an awful lot of people think that they're kind of neither of the above, but they're the reasonable ones in the middle.
Certainly, and it's interesting you mentioned that about people who, unlike our viewers and listeners, who don't really, our viewers and listeners love politics, are interested in it, are very connected people who want to know what's going on in the world. But as Tony Blair wrote in his autobiography, A Journey, which I didn't buy because I didn't want to fund a war criminal, he put the hardest thing for any practicing politician to remember is that most people, most days of the week, don't give politics a second thought. Definitely not talk viewers and listeners, but many people out there. Really interesting you mentioned that. Polanski himself, obviously a very charismatic character, but some of the other characters around him as well, very, very worrying. The deputy leader, for example, who said some horribly anti-Semitic things too. I just wonder, if they are to become a mainstream force, can you see Labour are doing some sort of deal with them if they were, if they get 16% of the vote, and not to say they would get 16% of the MPs, but if it doesn't go particularly well for Reform after the next election, we're into massive hypotheticals here, 3 years on, who on earth knows, but could you hypothetically see a deal being done between Labour and Green?
100%. I think that, when I sit there and think look at Reform's progress from next to nothing to where they are today, having led in the last, 200 plus polls. And you think, what could stop Reform winning the next election? Yeah. I know, I recognise that most people don't spend their time thinking about that, but I give it a bit of thought.
I think there's a sort of ABN movement, a sort of anyone but Nigel movement. There are a lot of people who we saw what happened in Caerphilly. We've seen a lot of evidence about talking about people tactically voting and so on, who will do anything they can to stop Nigel Farage becoming Prime Minister, Reform UK becoming the government. And we got to remember that whilst 24% of people in the latest YouGov poll say they support Reform UK, that still means that 76% of people don't.
Absolutely. And if that gets organised, then that is a real threat to a future reform, the chances of a future reform government. And I think that is entirely credible. I mean, the other great threat would be the introduction of proportional representation. That is a card that a desperate Labour Party, even though it was not in their manifesto, it would be a card that a desperate Labour Party could conceivably play to keep Reform out. And it would probably keep Reform out, but at the same time, it would also mean the end of Labour Party having any majority again for the foreseeable future. That's the extreme version.
Although interestingly, on proportional representation, if you look at the vote management, sorry, we're getting very, very nerdy here. But if you look
getting boring.
No, I hope not. I hope not. I'm enjoying it. You look at the Lib Dems, who had 3.5 million votes and 72 seats at the end of it, and Reform UK that had 4.1 million votes and just 5 seats at the end of the next election. So obviously, I mean, there are lots of factors and all of that, but there's so many different things that could, in theory, happen in the next year, 2 years, 3 years, or however long it is until the next election. Isabel, always great to talk to you. Thanks for your time this evening. Talk's international editor, Isabel Oakeshott, there giving us her wisdom and insight on the big stories of the day. What do you think about everything that she said there? 0344 499 1000. Just want to say a big hello to Dave in Buckinghamshire, who says, I'm great to be back in touch with you guys at Talk. I've just got a smart TV. Well, that is a great reminder that 3/4 of homes have a smart TV, and if you're a person with it, you can, first of all, Dave, hello, great to see you, and thank you for, well, I can't see you, but you can see me. Thank you for joining us today, and the fact that if you're listening on your DAB Plus radio or your smart speaker, or however you're listening to us through the internet or whatever, you can watch us on YouTube or your connected device. And when I say connected device, I mean your iPad, I mean your phone, I mean, as Dave was saying, your connected TV. If you've got a smart TV, we're on there, and you can watch us on there and see us as well as hear us, and every guest as well, including Isabel, who was on there. We'll take some calls in just a second, right up to 10 o'clock. We'll also have a chat with Petri Hoskin about what's coming up on her programme between 10 and 1. So if you want to get whatever is on the tip of your tongue off your chest, as it were, to mix metaphors, do give me a ring, 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thanks to everybody who's been in touch. As I say, you can give me a ring in the next 23 minutes before Petri Hoskins' programme, 0344 499 1000. That is the number that Debbie and Hazel have rung. Debbie first. We're going to have a chat with her. Debbie is in London. You're very welcome to the programme, Debbie. What would you like to say?
Hi, Peter. It's Deb. How are you?
Very well, thanks, Deb. How are you doing? What would you like to say this evening?
I seem to move up and down the country.
Okay. Are you in London now, or where are you?
What do I always say? I'm from London but live in Lincolnshire. But yeah.
Okay. Can I just talk to the top people behind the glass whose fault this is not, and can we put in Lincolnshire on Debbie's little line? Because when you ring up we can see where you're from, but you're not in London. You're in Lincolnshire. Tell us your thoughts today, Debbie.
I am from London.
Okay. Well, that's fine. Tell us what's on your mind.
My thoughts are, I just don't understand. Pretty much, we go back to Rachel from accounts. How the hell are this lot getting away with just lying and still surviving?
All politicians do it, I'm afraid, and maybe that's just what people are accepting these days. Maybe they just price that in. What do you think?
I think it's wrong.
Well, it is wrong. Oh, it's totally wrong. There's no doubt about that. What would you like them to do? What sort of politicians do you think we deserve?
Well, I just think we should have people that we follow or have pride in or respect that can be themselves. Maybe I'm just being really naive.
No, I don't think you are. I don't think it's too much to ask. I'm not arguing against you at all. Is there anybody in Parliament that you think actually has some level of integrity from any party?
Well, the thing is, I don't know them personally, and I'm one of those sort of people that like to meet people and weigh them up. So anyone can portray themselves in whatever way they want to portray themselves, and we all go, oh, that's them, they're not them. And that, my background, but, like Nigel, does he come across like he's there to please everybody, but is he genuine? I'd like to think he is. But I just want people that, a bit like Keir, not buggering off every 5 seconds to different countries across the world and not being here to look after us. It just becomes a bit of a joke, and I think we are a world joke. And I spoke to Petri the other night just after your show, and I was like, we can't put a label on these two individuals, but it's espionage. They brought the country, especially of Andrew, his family into dispute. I think it's disgusting.
Well, we just have to be absolutely clear that there's no suggestion that they were acting on behalf of other governments. That's Debbie's opinion. Clearly, they deny any wrongdoing against them. Debbie, I just wonder, when you see what is happening at the moment, let's say with something like Chagos, for example, it's a big, important thing. It's a lot of money that we would be paying as taxpayers. Is there any level of trust in either the government or the opposition to sort this issue out?
No. And I just don't understand why they're going to sell them down the river. My family and I, because I went there last year, are going to Gibraltar in April. And I met Gibraltarians who say they're British because they are.
Yes.
And they don't want to not be British. Mm-hmm. And I just worry, are they going to sell them down the river too?
I think that's a legitimate question, and I think that a lot of people will be thinking about that, especially with the EU rules that have to be followed in Gibraltar. Debbie in Lincolnshire, not in London but in Lincolnshire, thank you for joining us this evening. Let's go to Hazel in Hampshire, who has some thoughts on Lindsay Hoyle. Hazel, great to talk to you. What would you like to say?
Yes, it's about Lindsay Hoyle. Yesterday he casually dropped in that while I was in the Virgin Islands, that sort of thing. Now, a couple of years ago, he was in a little bit of hot water for keep swanning off to exotic places on little jaunts all over the place and staying in the best hotels and first-class flights, and takes his wife as well. And he hasn't learned anything from that. He's still doing it, obviously.
He is the Speaker of the House of Commons. Do you not think he should be representing us abroad as Speaker of the House of Commons?
No, we've got the Foreign Office, we've got MPs who swan up, we've got all sorts of people who can represent us abroad. That's what diplomats are for.
Okay.
He shouldn't do that. He's a Speaker of the House. Do you remember John Bercow doing that, or Betty Boothroyd?
Well, I don't think John Bercow has any integrity whatsoever, but perhaps he was abroad a little bit less. What do you want from a speaker? What do you think their qualities should be, Hazel?
To sit in his chair and do what he's supposed to do.
Okay, Hazel, listen, thanks so much for your thoughts on that. That's Hazel in Hampshire there. He's given me a ring on 0344 499 1000. Thanks to Leslie, he says, my comment of the night was from Andre. He is spot on regarding the Greens. They're being used by the Muslim vote. It is a very dangerous time, in Leslie's opinion. And Angie also talks about the Green Party. What worries me with the Green Party is that in 3 years, our 16-year-olds will be allowed to vote. Many are involved in county lines. Some are addicted to vaping, some addicted to porn. The general view of kids in my teenager's school were pro-green before these announcements. What will become of our kids, says Angie. Well, lots more to discuss, including about what happened in Prime Minister's Questions today. We'll do that after the break here on Talk. Stay with us right up until 10 o'clock.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Craig is in Yorkshire and has given me a ring on 0344 499 1000. Craig, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Hi, Peter. Good evening. I just remember hearing, probably on this network a few years ago, that across the United States, much of the population used to stand still when PMQs were being held in the UK, and it was rebroadcast on domestic networks in America. I think C-SPAN might have been the network.
C-SPAN, I think, still takes it, actually, one of the networks that you can use, one of the cable networks. Certainly, it is something that is very well known, and actually in this country as well, as you probably know, Craig, the vast majority of people, if they see anything of Parliament, they're likely to see Prime Minister's Questions.
Exactly. And, you know, the commentary I heard in the past was that people in America were amazed at the quality of the debate, that people could ask questions and the Prime Minister would generally ask them. And I'm just wondering now if people in America, and certainly here, are completely disillusioned from what they're seeing, because what I saw today at PMQs, it just made me feel sick. It looked staged, managed. There were planted questions from Labour MPs that allowed Starmer to provide a reply.
Yeah.
Then
you can always tell them as well. They're so obvious, aren't they, Craig, when they say, does the Prime Minister agree with me that it's a wonderful thing that this local hospital has been opened, and doesn't it show that the policies of this government are working brilliantly? I mean, they're not quite as blatant as that, but they may as well be.
They may as well be. And the questions today, they were very leading, and then it led Starmer to be able to provide some criticism of, the Green Party or Reform candidates or people that have been suspended and whatever else. And it was just appalling. And I was completely disillusioned by it. And in particular, he didn't answer one question that Kemi put to him on what were very valid and reasonable questions about, the student.
It's a big issue, Craig, isn't it? The student loans issue, because there are so many people who just can't pay that money back. And I would have liked to hear. I was sitting here, as I do every Wednesday at 12 o'clock with Julie Hartley-Brewer, going through Prime Minister's questions, and there just didn't seem to be any answers coming on that. There didn't seem to be a grip of that issue or any plan to sort that out.
Yeah, there's no plans, and I don't know why the Speaker of the House isn't compelled to challenge Starmer and say, look, the question has been asked, and it's almost like those spoof sketches from the Two Ronnies where they would do Mastermind and they would answer the previous question or the next question, and it was hilarious. If you remember, that's my favourite Two Ronnies sketch. It's almost as bad as that, and it's not even funny. I mean, the student loan situation is appalling. I've got friends where I live, and their son graduated from university, and before getting a job, every month his student debt was incurring an additional £300. £300, that's £3,600 of interest is being accrued to his debt when he wasn't working. Now he's working, he's paying it off. But
you got to reach a certain level, and then even when you do, it's about 9% of your income above that, which is quite a big chunk. I mean, when I went to university, it was just as the much lower fees were in. So before kind of top of fees and the tripling of those fees, tuition fees, and I mean it was just over £1,000 a year. I had loans and things as well. I managed to pay that off, and it was okay. It wasn't great. I would have loved not to have had to pay it off, but I wonder what you think, Craig. I do believe in the principle that people should pay for university education. I don't see why a bin man should pay for the education of a doctor, but that's still kind of happening, actually, because you have people who don't earn enough to pay it off, and you have a load of international students as well, many of whom who never pay the money back. So there's so much student debt that is just billions sitting there that is never going to be paid back. And then you have these people who are in a position to pay some of it back at these huge interest rates, and the compound just goes on and on.
It just goes on and on. And I'm not 100% sure that a foreign student can get a loan to pay their fees. I mean, don't forget the international fees are probably 3 times that of a, resident.
They're a bit less now, certainly, but there's certainly a lot of evidence to say, I'm not saying it's all international students at all, but there are plenty of international students who just don't pay it back. They just go back to their home country and don't pay it back, and there's very little redress for that. Craig, just on a broader issue on Starmer, obviously damaged recently and so on, but one thing that we've kind of been talking about, I was talking about with Debbie a minute ago, trust in politics, what you want from politicians and what you want from Prime Minister's questions as well, what you want our reputation to be around the world. Can we get it back, Craig, or is it just too late?
I'm not sure if it's too late. I'm an optimistic person, and I'm hoping it can come back and we have trust. I mean, the problem is everywhere you look now, we are clearly living in a low-trusting society. I mean, my if I can go on a little bit further, my wife, she's from Hong Kong, so she's following the BNO pathway. She's having to sit the Life in the UK test, and she had to go to test centre in Leeds. They looked in her socks. They made her pull back her hair to see if she had an earpiece in.
Right.
This is because a lot of people who sit the Life in the UK test, they turn up thinking that they can keep a Bluetooth earpiece in and they can talk to somebody outside. These are people from low-trusting societies that are coming to this country and, ruining it. And I lived with an ID card in my pocket for 30 years when I was overseas in Hong Kong, and it never infringed my rights. Yeah. And I strongly believe that we should have them now in this country.
Okay.
And I've just come to this conclusion, probably this year, And it's all about trust, because if you're living in a high-trusting society, you don't need these things. But we are clearly no longer, sadly, living in a high-trusting society.
Craig, a lot of common sense.
It's appalling.
A lot of common sense spoken there. Please give me a ring anytime, Craig. That's Craig in Yorkshire. They're very, very interesting to hear from him. Elle on Twitter says the fact that anyone thinks that the Greens will address their local issues is completely baffling. Their main focus is destroying Western values, law and order, and demonising the ancestral homeland of Jewish people. They're a danger to us all. Thank you to Stacey, who simply says, great show again. Looking very handsome too. Appreciate that, Stacey. Clearly, you're a woman of great taste. Andre is in Brighton with another Andre, a second Andre, and not even Andre Walker, who's on tomorrow night, not tonight. Andre in Brighton has some thoughts on the Labour Party. You're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Oh, good evening. Yes, I just want to say you had a caller from Northern Ireland not long ago, and he said, I don't understand why Muslims don't form their own party. And
yes.
I'm just saying they already have got a party. It's called the Islamic Labour Party. You know,
I didn't even know that was a thing. There we are.
Well, so you see, the Labour Party at the moment, this government.
You believe the Labour Party isn't how you believe it's there already, and the Labour Party is
so obvious.
Is it?
So obvious that look what happened. They do everything. They do everything the Muslims want. I mean, the Labour councils all turned a blind eye to the rape gangs. We all know about that. They allow the Muslims to go on the streets inciting hatred against Jews every Saturday on those Palestine marches. Now, if Tommy Robinson shouted anything, the 50 policemen would jump on top of him. But Muslims can deny the Holocaust. They can shout disgusting things. They drink babies' blood and all this stuff. They get away.
Sorry, hold on. Where is your evidence of any Muslim drinking baby's blood?
Pardon? No, you didn't get me. I said the Muslim protesters, the pro-Palestine protesters are shouting that Jews drink baby's blood.
Okay, the blood libel, that's obviously
they shout all
nonsense.
These disgusting anti-Semitic things, and the police do nothing. If someone from a so-called right-wing organisation said anything like that, they'd be in prison.
So you think the Labour
Party are the Islamic Labour Party? Everyone knows that. I mean, I'm just stating the obvious, really.
Thank you, Andre. Much appreciated. I don't think I agree with you. I know I can see certainly where you're coming from, but I don't think we agree quite on that. I do think certainly that there are many instances where the Labour Party have capitulated, and I think that is something that is a source of great regret, certainly for me as a citizen. Thank you for your call, Andre and Brighton there. Let's go to the United States, and Cindy is in Michigan. Cindy, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Hi, Peter. It's so nice to talk to you again.
You too, Cindy.
Thank you. I wanted to talk about Harry and Meghan.
Okay, go ahead.
I don't like this half-in, half-out business.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that they should be stripped entirely in a official capacity of their titles and of doing engagements when they're representing the royal family. I think
they don't represent the royal family anymore, but it kind of looks as if they do a lot of the time. They don't mind that. They perhaps don't mind the confusion there.
Right, exactly. I know they don't mind the confusion, and I just want the world to know that, that they've been just officially something or other banned or stripped or been told you shouldn't ever do this, and there's no half in and half out, and just want it official.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think a lot of people feel the same way. What should they do? What do you think they should do? Because they have a lot of fame, and maybe they could bring some, if they get a lot of attention no matter what they do. That's not going to be the case. They would argue that their foundation and everything they do is to bring attention to good causes. You perhaps don't feel that's what's actually happening, Cindy.
I think that it's all a front, and that's what makes me so angry. I feel that when you do something good for someone, you don't always have to broadcast it. And when you do, it just looks like you're doing it because you want others to know about it and notice you. And that just seems tacky. It seems disingenuous, and it makes me a little bit upset.
Are there royals
irritated?
Are there royals you like, Cindy? Are there members of the royal family you think are good people?
All of I love Charles. I even loved Camilla. I've grown to love her. Initially, I kind of didn't, because of the whole Diana thing.
Yeah.
But I've grown to kind of respect her.
Mm-hmm.
How she kind of carries herself. I like it. But I love William and Kate. Love, so much love.
What about them do you like?
Oh, they're so gracious. They come across really genuine. They work really hard. They don't come across to me like, I don't, of course I don't know them personally, but they don't come across to me as if they take advantage of any situation or their wealth. And they just seem like really good. Actually, like you could have lunch with them.
It'd be I would love to have a pint with Prince William. That would be great. And I'd probably be too nervous to speak to.
Maybe some apple juice.
Maybe some apple juice. Well, a pint of apple juice, yes. Cindy, thank you very much indeed. That's Cindy in Michigan in the United States, talking about her love of the royal family. Leslie has been in touch, says, a bit rich of the BBC investigating the Tourette's man, seeing as they allowed Kneecap to spout their hatred. And Bob Villan as well, I would add to that, Leslie. Right then, I'm nearly finished, and taking up the baton of broadcasting brilliance is the marvellous Petri Hoskin in a few minutes' time. What's coming up in your show?
Well, I've just bashed my hip on the bin out there.
That's not good.
Oh, you know the red bin?
The big one?
The danger bin.
The danger bin.
The danger bin.
Well, it was red. I mean, you should have known it was there.
I should have noticed
so
it.
That's not good.
That's really
Are you all
not
right?
good.
Do you need a bit of a sit down for 3 hours?
Yeah, maybe. A bit of a lie down.
Yes.
That'd be good.
I'm not sure I could do another 3 hours.
Coming up, we're going to be obviously addressing this extraordinary story about the Commons Speaker. I mean, what the is going on?
Bizarre. Utterly bizarre.
So bizarre.
Yeah.
I felt sorry for Lindsay Hoyle, actually. I really did. Because I think he did have a duty if he'd had information.
Yeah, he had to pass it on.
Yeah, he had to. But yeah, so we're going to be looking at that. Also, going to be looking at fly tipping, because it's been a massive story recently about all these huge tips that are everywhere.
Yes.
And this is a problem now for household waste. This is people. And the question is why? But when I have to go to the tip, which is one of my favourite things to do, I have to say.
It's very satisfying, isn't it?
It's a day out.
It's a day out. Gets you out of the house. It is actually very satisfying,
But I have to drive for about 40 minutes.
Yeah.
It's not very green. And there have to be an appointment, and I have to go down to Smuggler's Way. So that's quite a journey. And I'm lucky I've got a car.
Yes.
And a lot of people don't have cars in London.
Yeah.
So how are they meant to get rid of household waste? If you've got an old mattress, what do you do with it? You know.
Well, I remember I was moving home